The yellow school bus erupted in flames at 7:42 a.m. on Highway 9, trapping 23 children inside a metal coffin. Jack Miller, a grease-stained mechanic with calloused hands and an empty wallet, had 30 seconds to decide: drive past and get to his son's school on time, or become the kind of hero he'd sworn never to be again. He chose fire. He chose screaming children. He chose a little girl with singed pigtails who would change his life forever. Stay with me until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Jack Miller's hands were still black with motor oil when he saw the smoke. It rose in a thick, dark column from somewhere ahead on the highway, twisting against the pale morning sky like a warning from God himself. Jack squinted through the cracked windshield of his '98 Ford pickup, the truck that had survived 200,000 miles and more bad luck than any vehicle had a right to. The engine rattled beneath the hood, a sound he'd been meaning to fix for 6 months, but never had the time or money for. Story of his life, really. He checked his watch, 7:39 a.m. If he kept his speed steady, didn't hit traffic, didn't stop for anything, he'd make it to Riverside Elementary by 8 a.m. to pick up Evan from before-school care. His boy had been there since 6:30 this morning because Jack's night shift at Rodriguez Auto Repair ran until 7 o'clock. And what else was a single father supposed to do? You worked the hours they gave you. You picked up the overtime. You smiled when your son said it was okay that you were always late, even though you could see the disappointment hiding behind his brave little face. The smoke thickened as Jack came around the bend. That's when he saw it. A yellow school bus sat askew across 2 lanes, its hood crumpled against the concrete median barrier. Gray smoke poured from the engine compartment in billowing waves, and even from 100 yards away, Jack could see the orange flicker of flames beginning to lick up from underneath the chassis. "No," Jack whispered. "No, no, no." His foot hit the brake instinctively. The pickup shuddered, tires squealing as he decelerated hard. Other cars were already stopped, scattered across the highway in confused clusters. People stood on the shoulder with their phones out, recording. Always recording. Nobody moving toward the bus. Nobody helping. Jack's heart hammered against his ribs. That old familiar feeling, the one he'd spent 2 years trying to forget. The feeling of adrenaline and terror mixing into something that made you do stupid, reckless, heroic things. The feeling that had gotten him commended twice and hospitalized once during his 5 years as a volunteer firefighter. The feeling that had been there the night his wife Sarah died, when no amount of CPR or desperate prayer could bring her back. He'd walked away from all of it after Sarah. Turned in his gear, stopped answering the calls, buried himself in engine grease and overtime hours because that kind of work didn't ask anything of your soul. But now there was a school bus on fire, and Jack could see small faces pressed against the windows. Children. His foot hit the gas pedal before his brain could argue. The pickup lurched forward, engine roaring as he swerved around the stopped cars. Someone shouted at him, something about waiting for first responders, about not being an idiot. But Jack couldn't hear them over the blood pounding in his ears. He slammed the truck into park 30 feet from the bus and threw himself out of the cab. The heat hit him like a physical wall. The flames had spread faster than he'd thought possible, crawling up the front of the bus with hungry, crackling intensity. Black smoke rolled across the highway, acrid and thick, burning his nose and throat. Through the haze, Jack could see the bus driver slumped over the wheel, unconscious or worse. And behind him, through the windows, terrified children banged on the glass with small fists, their screams muffled but unmistakable. 23 kids, Jack's mind calculated automatically. Standard school bus capacity. Maybe more if they were packed tight. And the fire was spreading toward the fuel tank. "Somebody call 911!" Jack shouted over his shoulder at the gathering crowd. His hands were already moving, pulling off his denim jacket, wrapping it around his right forearm. The old training kicked in like muscle memory. Protect your airways, shield your skin, assess the structure before entry. A woman in a gray sedan yelled back, "They're already on the way! You can't go in there!" Jack didn't answer. He was already running toward the bus door. The accordion-style door was closed but not locked. Jack grabbed the handle and yanked, muscles straining. It resisted for a moment. Pneumatics probably failed, then gave way with a hydraulic hiss. Hot air and smoke blasted out, making him cough and stumble back. He pulled his t-shirt up over his nose and mouth and climbed inside. The interior was chaos. Children were screaming, crying, scrambling over seats in panic. Some huddled in the aisles, frozen with fear. Others pounded on the emergency exit at the rear, too small or too scared to work the release handle. The smoke was thicker here, a gray-black cloud that made his eyes water instantly. "Everyone listen to me!" Jack's voice cut through the panic, loud and commanding in a way he hadn't used in years. "I'm getting you out. Stay calm. Move toward my voice." He grabbed the nearest child, a boy in a red hoodie, maybe 9 years old, eyes wide with terror. "What's your name, buddy?" Tyler," the boy stammered. "Okay, Tyler, you're going to be fine. I need you to go out this door right now and run away from the bus. Can you do that?" Tyler nodded frantically. "Good man. Go." Jack physically turned the boy toward the exit and gave him a gentle push. Tyler jumped down the steps and ran, 1 down, 22 to go. "You!" Jack pointed at 2 girls clutching each other in the 3rd row. "Come on, let's move. Follow Tyler." They scrambled toward him, and Jack helped them down the steps. He could hear more sirens in the distance now, but they were still too far away. The fire had reached the front seats, flames dancing along the torn vinyl, eating through the rubber floor mats. The heat was becoming unbearable. Jack moved deeper into the bus. Kids pressed toward him now, understanding that this man meant safety, meant escape. He grabbed them 2 at a time, directing them toward the door, counting in his head. 11, 12, 13. A girl with glasses stumbled in the aisle, and Jack scooped her up without breaking stride. "I've got you, sweetheart. You're okay." 16, 17, 18. The smoke was getting worse. Jack's lungs burned with every breath, his eyes streaming tears. He couldn't see more than a few feet ahead now. The rear of the bus was completely obscured in gray-black haze. "Is anyone else back there?" Jack shouted, coughing hard. "Call out if you can hear me." For a moment, nothing, just the roar of flames and the creak of heating metal. Then, a small, weak voice. "Help, please!" Jack's blood went cold. Someone was still trapped at the back. He pushed forward, half blind, navigating by feel more than sight. His hand found the top of a seat back, then another. The heat was intense now, the kind of heat that meant the fuel tank was getting dangerously close to its ignition point. He had maybe a minute, maybe less. "Keep talking," Jack called. "Where are you?" "Here." The voice was fainter now. I can't move." Jack found her in the last row, wedged between the seat and the emergency exit door. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, with dark hair and pigtails, one of them singed black at the end. Her pink backpack was caught on something, a piece of twisted metal from the impact, pinning her in place. Her face was streaked with soot and tears, her eyes unfocused and drifting closed. Smoke inhalation. She was losing consciousness. "Hey!" Jack grabbed her face gently, forcing her to look at him. "Stay with me. What's your name?" Lily, she whispered. "Lily. That's a pretty name. I'm Jack, and I'm going to get you out of here, okay? But I need you to stay awake. Can you do that for me?" She nodded weakly. Jack grabbed the backpack and pulled. It didn't budge. He yanked harder, cursing under his breath. The metal had it snagged tight, and there was no time to work it free carefully. Behind him, he heard a sound that made his stomach drop, a deep, ominous whoosh as the fire found something new to consume. No time. Jack pulled his pocket knife from his jeans, flicked it open with his thumb, and cut through the backpack straps in 2 quick slashes. The bag fell away, and Lily slumped forward into his arms. "Got you," Jack muttered. He lifted her against his chest, one arm under her legs, one supporting her back. She weighed almost nothing. "Hold on tight, Lily." But she didn't respond. Her head lolled against his shoulder, unconscious. Jack turned and ran. The smoke was a solid wall now, disorienting and choking. He couldn't see the door anymore, couldn't see anything but gray haze and flickering orange light. His lungs screamed for clean air. His eyes burned so badly he had to close them, navigating blind, feet finding the aisle by instinct. 5 more steps. 4. 3. His shoulder slammed into a seatback and he stumbled, nearly dropping Lily. He caught himself, adjusted his grip on the little girl, kept moving. 2 steps. 1. Fresh air hit his face like a blessing. Jack burst through the bus door and down the steps, his legs nearly buckling as he hit the pavement. He ran as hard as he could with a child in his arms, boots pounding on asphalt, putting distance between them and the bus. 20 feet, 30, 40. He heard someone yelling, "Get down! It's going to—" The explosion lifted Jack off his feet. The shockwave hit him from behind like a giant's fist, hot and violent, throwing him forward. Jack twisted midair, turning his body so his back would take the impact, protecting the girl in his arms. He hit the ground hard, breath knocked out of his lungs, head bouncing off the concrete. Stars burst across his vision. Then darkness crept in at the edges, and Jack fought to stay conscious because Lily, little Lily with the singed pigtail, wasn't breathing. "No," Jack gasped. He forced himself up onto his elbows, ignoring the screaming pain in his back and shoulders. "No, no, no!" He laid Lily flat on the asphalt, checked her airway, clear, and tilted her head back. 2 rescue breaths. Her small chest rose and fell. Jack positioned his hands on her sternum, adjusted for her size, started compressions. "Come on, Lily," he said through gritted teeth. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Don't do this. Come on, sweetheart." 15 compressions. 2 more breaths. Her lips were blue. Breathe, just breathe. The world had narrowed to this moment, this little girl, this desperate attempt to pull her back from wherever she was drifting. Jack's training took over completely, automatic and precise. Another round of compressions. Another breath. "Come on," Lily coughed. Her whole body convulsed and she coughed again, black mucus spilling from her mouth. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, terrified, and she gasped in a huge, rattling breath. "That's it!" Jack's voice cracked with relief. He rolled her onto her side in the recovery position, supporting her head as she coughed and coughed, her little lungs trying to clear themselves. "You're okay. You're going to be okay." Paramedics swarmed around them. Where had they come from? And someone was pulling Jack back, pulling him away from Lily. He resisted for a moment, some primitive instinct making him want to stay with her, to protect her. "Sir, we've got her. Sir, you need medical attention too." "I'm fine," Jack said automatically, even as his legs gave out and someone caught him under the arms. "You're not fine. You've got 2nd-degree burns on your neck and possible internal injuries from that blast. Let us help you." Jack let them guide him to an ambulance. He sat on the back bumper, watching as they loaded Lily onto a stretcher, strapped an oxygen mask over her small face, started an IV in her tiny arm. She was awake now, her eyes tracking the movement around her, looking for something. Someone. "Her parents," Jack said hoarsely to the paramedic bandaging his neck. "Does she—" "Someone needs to call her parents. They're already on the way. Everyone's parents are on the way." The paramedic, a young woman with kind eyes, studied him. "You saved all those kids. You know that, right? 23 children would be dead if you hadn't gone in there." Jack didn't answer. He was watching the burning shell of the school bus, flames still consuming what was left. The driver had been pulled out. Jack could see them working on him 50 feet away. Chest compressions and equipment everywhere. Critical condition, probably. Maybe worse. "The bus driver?" Jack asked. "They're doing everything they can," which meant it wasn't good. Jack dropped his head into his hands, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. His whole body ached. His lungs felt like he'd inhaled fire, which basically he had. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, adrenaline crash hitting him hard now that the crisis was over. 23 kids. He'd gotten 23 kids out of that bus. And one of them, little Lily, with her pink backpack and singed pigtail, had almost died in his arms. "Sir?" Another voice, official and authoritative. Jack looked up to see a police officer standing over him, notebook in hand. "I need to get your statement. Can you tell me your name?" "Jack Miller." "Mr. Miller, what you did today was incredibly brave. Can you walk me through what happened?" Jack told him. The smoke, the screaming children, the girl trapped at the back. The explosion, the CPR. He spoke mechanically, watching the scene unfold around him like he was observing it from a distance. More fire trucks had arrived, foam crews working to put out the last of the flames. News vans were setting up on the shoulder, of course they were. Local hero saves children from fiery death. It would be the lead story on every channel tonight. Do you have family we should contact? The officer asked. My son, Evan. He's at Riverside Elementary. I was supposed to pick him up before school started. I need to... We'll send someone to get him and bring him here. You're going to the hospital for observation. I don't need... It's not optional, Mr. Miller. You inhaled a significant amount of smoke and you were caught in an explosion. You're going to the hospital. Jack was too tired to argue. He let them load him into an ambulance. Not the same one as Lily. She'd already left, sirens wailing. The paramedic riding with him kept asking questions. Did his chest hurt? Was he dizzy? Could he rate his pain on a scale of 1 to 10? Jack answered numbly, staring at the ceiling of the ambulance. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the news helicopters circling, getting footage. By tomorrow, everyone in the city would know his name. There would be interviews probably, awards, people calling him a hero. But Jack didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who'd broken his own promise to stay away from the fire, from the danger, from the kind of situations that left you with nightmares and survivor's guilt. He felt like a man who just remembered exactly why he'd quit in the first place. The ambulance doors closed and they pulled away from the scene, leaving behind the smoke and the chaos and the wreckage of a yellow school bus that would haunt Jack's dreams for years to come. He closed his eyes and saw Lily's face, pale and unconscious, lips blue, chest not moving. Saw his hands doing compressions, counting, begging. Saw her cough and breathe and live. And Jack realized with a sinking feeling in his gut that some part of him had needed this. Some broken part that had been empty since Sarah died, since he'd walked away from the work that had given his life meaning. He'd gotten a taste of it again. The rush, the purpose, the crystal clear moment when nothing mattered except saving a life. And God help him, it had felt good. The ambulance hit a bump, jarring his burned neck, and Jack hissed in pain. The paramedic adjusted his IV, said something soothing. Jack barely heard her. He was thinking about Evan, about his son's face when he heard what his dad had done. Evan, who barely remembered his mother, who'd grown up with a father who worked too much and was home too little, who never talked about the volunteer firefighting days. What would Evan think? Would he be proud? Scared? Both? Jack didn't know. He didn't know anything anymore except that he was tired. He hurt everywhere. And he'd just upended his carefully controlled life for a busload of children he didn't even know, including one little girl named Lily, who had no idea that her mother owned half the city. At St. Mary's Hospital, Jack was poked, prodded, scanned, and questioned for 3 hours. Second-degree burns on his neck and forearms. Smoke inhalation, moderate. Bruised ribs from the explosion, mild concussion. They wanted to keep him overnight for observation. Jack refused. He had to get to Evan. Mr. Miller, I strongly advise... I'm leaving, Jack said flatly, pulling the IV out of his own arm before anyone could stop him. Someone tell me where my son is. Evan was in the waiting room, sitting next to a police officer who'd apparently been assigned to babysit him until Jack was cleared. The moment Evan saw his father, he jumped up and ran across the room, throwing his arms around Jack's waist. Dad, they said you saved a whole bunch of kids from a fire. Jack winced, hugging hurt with bruised ribs, but he wrapped his arms around his son anyway. Yeah, buddy, something like that. Are you okay? You look really tired. I am really tired. Jack crouched down to Evan's level, ignoring the way his body protested. His son was 8 years old, skinny and small for his age, with Jack's dark hair and Sarah's green eyes. But I'm fine. I promise. The police officer said you're a hero. The police officer is being generous. No, Dad, seriously, there were like 20 kids on that bus, and you got them all out before it exploded. Evan's eyes were wide with something like awe. That's really cool. Jack almost laughed. Cool. His son thought nearly dying in a fire was cool. Maybe at 8 years old, everything dangerous seemed cool instead of terrifying. Come on, Jack said, standing up with a groan. Let's go home. The officer insisted on driving them. Jack's truck was still at the scene, would be towed later. And by the time they pulled up to the shabby apartment complex on the east side of town, Jack was ready to collapse. He thanked the officer, guided Evan upstairs, and unlocked the door to their 2-bedroom unit. Home. It wasn't much: worn carpet, water stains on the ceiling, furniture from the Salvation Army, but it was theirs. The rent was cheap because the neighborhood was rough, but Jack had chosen it for the schools. Riverside Elementary was one of the better ones in the district, and that mattered more than having a fancy address. "Can I watch TV?" Evan asked. "Yeah, but keep it low. I need to shower." Jack stood under the hot water for 20 minutes, watching black soot and ash swirl down the drain. His neck stung where the burns were, and his ribs ached with every breath, but the heat felt good on his sore muscles. He closed his eyes and let the water pound against his back, trying not to think about the day, about the screaming children, about Lily's unconscious face, trying not to think about Sarah. But of course, he did. He always did. 2 years, 3 months, and 18 days since the car accident that had taken her from them. Head-on collision with a drunk driver, instant death, absolutely nothing anyone could have done. Jack had tried anyway, pulled her from the wreckage, performed CPR on the side of the road, while Evan screamed in his car seat and strangers called 911. 30 minutes of chest compressions, of begging her to breathe, of refusing to accept what every part of him knew was true. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. And Jack had quit firefighting 3 days after the funeral because he couldn't save people anymore. Couldn't be the hero. Couldn't risk leaving Evan alone in the world if something went wrong. Except today he'd done exactly that. Gone into the fire without thinking, without considering the consequences. And by some miracle, he'd survived. Jack turned off the water and stepped out, drying himself carefully around the bandages the hospital had applied. He pulled on clean jeans and a t-shirt and walked out to the living room where Evan was curled up on the couch, watching cartoons, with the volume barely audible. "You hungry?" Jack asked. "I can make mac and cheese." "Dad, you should rest. I can make it." "You're 8. "I know how to boil water and pour in the powder. You showed me." Evan looked at him seriously. "You got hurt today saving those kids. You should rest." Jack's chest tightened. When had his son become so grown up? "All right. Thanks, buddy." While Evan clattered around in the kitchen, standing on a chair to reach the stove, carefully measuring water into the pot, Jack collapsed on the couch and let his eyes drift closed. Just for a minute. Just to rest. He woke up 3 hours later to darkness and the sound of his phone ringing. Jack fumbled for it, squinting at the screen. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, probably a reporter who'd gotten his contact info somehow, but something made him swipe to accept. "Hello? Mr. Miller? Jack Miller?" A woman's voice, professional and precise. "Yeah, that's me. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm calling on behalf of Olivia Grant." Jack's brain was still foggy with sleep. The name meant nothing. "Okay. Ms. Grant would like to meet with you tomorrow morning if possible, to thank you personally for what you did today." "Thank me? Lady, I don't even know who—" "You saved her daughter, Mr. Miller, Lily Grant. She'd very much like to express her gratitude." "Lily, the girl from the bus." Jack sat up straighter, fully awake now. "Is she okay? Lily, is she all right?" "She's recovering well, thanks to you. She's being kept overnight for observation, but the doctors expect a full recovery." A pause. "Ms. Grant would like to meet with you at 10 a.m. tomorrow at her office downtown. I can send a car for you." "I don't need a car. I can—" Jack stopped. "Wait, her office downtown? Who exactly is Olivia Grant?" There was a moment of silence, as if Rebecca Chen couldn't quite believe he was asking. "Ms. Grant is the CEO of Grant Holdings. Perhaps you've heard of Grant Tower, the Grant Medical Center? Grant Holdings manages approximately 40% of the commercial real estate in the metro area, along with significant investments in healthcare, technology, and—" "She's rich," Jack interrupted. "Got it." "Yes, Mr. Miller, she's rich." Rebecca's voice was amused now. "Will 10 a.m. work for you?" Jack thought about his shift at the auto shop. He was supposed to work noon to 10 tonight, but Rodriguez had probably seen the news by now. Everyone had probably seen the news. His phone had 17 voicemail messages and 42 texts, none of which he'd bothered to check yet. "Yeah," Jack said. 10 a.m. is fine. Where should I go?" Rebecca gave him an address downtown. in the financial district where Jack rarely went because everything there cost too much money. She offered again to send a car. Jack refused again. He'd take the bus, like normal people. After he hung up, Jack sat in the darkness of his living room, listening to Evan's gentle breathing from the bedroom. The TV was off, the apartment silent except for the distant sound of traffic and sirens. Somewhere out there, in a hospital room, a little girl named Lily was sleeping, oxygen mask on her face. Her rich mother probably sitting vigil beside her bed. And tomorrow, Jack was going to meet that mother and accept her thanks for doing what any decent person would have done. He had no idea that meeting would change the entire trajectory of his life. No idea that Olivia Grant didn't just own half the city. She owned enough power, enough influence, enough wealth to reshape Jack Miller's entire world. And she was about to do exactly that. Jack didn't sleep well that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he was back inside the burning bus, smoke filling his lungs, small hands grabbing at his jacket, Lily's pale face going slack in his arms. He'd jolt awake, gasping, heart racing, the phantom smell of burning rubber and diesel fuel so real he had to get up and check that nothing was actually on fire. By 6 a.m., he gave up trying. He made coffee, the cheap stuff that came in a big plastic tub, and stood by the kitchen window watching the sun come up over the city skyline. Somewhere out there, in one of those gleaming towers, was Grant Holdings, Olivia Grant's empire. A world so far removed from his shabby apartment that it might as well be on another planet. Jack's phone buzzed, another text. He'd been getting them all night, friends from the auto shop, old firefighting buddies he hadn't talked to in 2 years, distant cousins he barely remembered, even his landlord congratulating him. Everyone had seen the news. The video of him carrying Lily out of the bus had gone viral, apparently. Someone's phone footage of the explosion, of Jack shielding the girl with his body as they went down, had been shared 50,000 times. He ignored all of it, deleted the messages without reading them. He didn't want to be famous, didn't want the attention. He'd done what needed doing, and that was supposed to be the end of it. Except now he had to go downtown and meet with a woman who probably had more money than God. Dad? Evan shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. Why are you up so early? Couldn't sleep. You want pancakes? We don't have pancake mix. Right. Jack had meant to go grocery shopping 3 days ago, but between double shifts and exhaustion, he'd never made it. The fridge held milk, eggs, some questionable lunch meat, and half a jar of pasta sauce. Eggs, then. Eggs are good.
Bacon Swiss what?
Jack scrambled 4 eggs, 2 for each of them, and they ate standing at the counter because the small kitchen table was covered in bills Jack needed to sort through. Rent was due in 5 days. The truck needed new tires. Evan needed new shoes. The soles on his current pair were wearing through. Jack did the math in his head, like he did every month, calculating what he could pay now versus what could wait another 2 weeks. Dad, there's people outside. Jack looked up. What? Evan was peering through the living room window, still in his pajamas. A bunch of people with cameras. Shit, Jack muttered, then caught himself. Sorry, language. But when he looked out the window, Evan was right. There were at least a dozen people clustered on the street below. News crews with cameras and microphones, photographers with long lenses, even what looked like ordinary people hoping to catch a glimpse of the hero from yesterday's fire. Someone had found out where he lived. Of course they had. Evan, go get dressed. We're leaving out the back. Are those reporters? Yeah, buddy, and we're not talking to them. Jack pulled on his boots, the same ones from yesterday, still smelling faintly of smoke, and grabbed his only clean button-down shirt from the closet. It was wrinkled and a little tight across the shoulders, but it would have to do for meeting a CEO. He ran a hand through his hair, looked at himself in the bathroom mirror, and barely recognized the man staring back. His neck was wrapped in white gauze where the burns were, and his eyes looked hollow, haunted, like he'd aged 10 years overnight. By 8:30, they'd snuck out through the apartment complex's rear exit, walked 3 blocks to avoid the news crews, and caught the bus to Riverside Elementary. Jack walked Evan to his classroom, said hello to Mrs. Patterson, who looked at him with something like reverence and called him a hero, which made Jack deeply uncomfortable, and headed back downtown. The city bus was crowded during morning rush hour. Jack stood near the back, holding onto a pole, while commuters in business suits checked their phones and ignored each other. A few people glanced at him, did a double take, started to say something, then thought better of it. Maybe they recognized him from the news. Maybe they just saw a working-class guy who didn't belong on the route that serviced the financial district. Grant Tower was impossible to miss. 42 stories of steel and glass rising from the center of downtown like a monument to wealth and power. Jack had passed it 100 times on the bus, but never actually been inside. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment, craning his neck to look up at the top floors where the morning sun reflected off the windows in blinding flashes. This was a mistake. He should just turn around, go to work, forget the whole thing. But he'd made a promise to that woman on the phone, Rebecca Chen, and Jack Miller kept his promises, even when they scared him. The lobby was all marble and brass, with a reception desk that looked like it cost more than Jack's annual salary. A security guard in a crisp uniform looked up as Jack approached, and his expression shifted from professional courtesy to something like suspicion. Jack was aware suddenly of how he must look. Work boots, faded jeans, a wrinkled shirt, bandages on his neck. "Can I help you?" The guard's tone suggested he doubted it. "I'm here to see Olivia Grant. I have an appointment." The guard's eyebrows rose. "Name?" "Jack Miller." Something changed in the guard's face. Recognition, maybe respect. "Mr. Miller, of course, I'll let them know you're here." He picked up a phone, spoke quietly into it, then nodded at Jack. "Take the elevator to the 40th floor. Someone will meet you there." The elevator was glass-walled, offering a view of the city as it climbed. Jack watched the streets shrink below him, watched the other buildings fall away until only sky surrounded him. His stomach twisted, not from the height, but from nerves he couldn't quite name. What was he supposed to say to this woman? Thank you for the thank you? It felt absurd. The elevator doors opened onto a reception area that looked like something from a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art on the walls, furniture that was probably worth more than Jack's truck. A young woman in a black dress suit stood waiting, her smile professional and practiced. "Mr. Miller, I'm Rebecca Chen. We spoke on the phone." "Right. Hi." Jack shook her offered hand, conscious of his calloused palm against her smooth one. "Ms. Grant is finishing a call, but she'll be with you shortly. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thanks." Rebecca led him to a sitting area near the windows and gestured for him to take a seat. Jack sat on the edge of a leather chair that probably cost more than his monthly rent, hands on his knees, feeling completely out of place. Through a glass wall, he could see into what must be Olivia Grant's office. Massive desk, more windows, a view that stretched all the way to the harbor. And there she was. Olivia Grant stood with her back to him, phone pressed to her ear, one hand gesturing as she spoke. She wore a tailored white suit that fit her perfectly, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Even from behind, even through glass, she radiated the kind of confidence that came from having power and knowing how to use it. Jack had seen wealthy people before, customers at the auto shop who drove BMWs and Mercedes, who complained about the cost of repairs while wearing watches worth more than Jack made in 6 months. But this was different. This was wealth on a scale Jack couldn't quite comprehend, the kind that shaped cities and influenced politics and built towers that scraped the sky. And he'd saved her daughter's life. The call ended. Olivia set down the phone, spoke briefly to someone else in her office, a man in a gray suit who nodded and left through a side door, and then turned toward the reception area. Her eyes found Jack immediately. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp features and dark eyes that assessed him in a single glance. Beautiful, Jack noticed with some surprise, in that polished, untouchable way of women who'd been rich their whole lives. But there was something else in her face, too, something raw beneath the professional mask. Exhaustion, maybe, or the aftermath of fear. Olivia walked out of her office, and Rebecca stood immediately. "Ms. Grant, this is Jack Miller." Jack stood too, awkwardly, feeling like he should bow or something equally ridiculous. "Mr. Miller." Olivia's voice was controlled, formal, but her hand trembled slightly when she extended it. "Thank you for coming." "Ma'am." Jack shook her hand. Her grip was firm, deliberate, the handshake of someone who'd learned that weakness was unacceptable. "Please, come into my office." She led him through the glass door, and Jack followed, hyper-aware of his boots on her expensive carpet. The office was even more impressive up close. Modern art that was probably worth a fortune. Bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes, photographs in silver frames showing Lily at various ages. Lily at the beach, Lily blowing out birthday candles, Lily hugging a golden retriever. "Sit, please." Olivia gestured to a chair across from her desk, but she didn't sit herself. Instead, she stood by the windows, arms crossed, looking out at the city like she was trying to compose herself. Jack sat, waited. For a long moment, Olivia said nothing. Then, without turning around, she spoke. "I watched you carry my daughter out of that bus. Someone posted the video online. I've watched it probably 50 times since yesterday." Jack didn't know what to say to that. "Lily is my only child, my whole world, and you—" Her voice cracked just slightly before she steadied it. "You went into fire to save her. You nearly died. I did what anyone would have done." "No." Olivia turned to face him, and Jack was startled to see tears in her eyes, though she was clearly fighting them. Most people stood there with their phones out, recording. You ran toward danger. You saved 23 children, including mine. That's not what anyone does, Mr. Miller. That's what heroes do. "I'm not a hero, Ms. Grant. I'm just— Don't." The word came out sharp. Olivia took a breath, softened her tone. "Please don't diminish what you did. Not to me. Not when my daughter is alive because of you." Jack looked down at his hands, the bandages on his forearms from the burns, the permanent grease stains under his nails from years of auto work. These weren't Hero's hands. They were just hands. "How is she?" he asked quietly. "Lily, is she really okay?" Olivia's expression shifted, some of the CEO armor dropping away to reveal the mother underneath. "She's at St. Mary's. They kept her for observation because of the smoke inhalation. But yes, she's okay. She's asking about you, actually. Wants to know who the man was who saved her." "She doesn't remember?" "She remembers bits and pieces. Being trapped, the fire, someone telling her to stay awake, then waking up in the hospital." Olivia moved to her desk, finally sitting down in the large leather chair behind it. "The doctors said if you hadn't performed CPR when you did, she wouldn't have made it. Her heart had stopped." Jack's chest tightened. He'd known it was close, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "Mr. Miller, I asked you here because I need to thank you, and I need to do more than just thank you." Olivia opened a drawer in her desk, pulled out a manila envelope, and slid it across to him. "This is completely inadequate for what you did, but please accept it anyway." Jack didn't touch the envelope. "Ma'am, I didn't save your daughter for money. I know that, but I also know that heroes still have bills to pay." Her gaze was direct, unflinching. "Open it." Reluctantly, Jack picked up the envelope. It wasn't sealed. Inside was a check, made out to him, signed in elegant script. He looked at the amount and felt the world tilt. $50,000. "I can't accept this," Jack said immediately, trying to hand it back. "You can, and you will." "Ms. Grant." "Olivia. And before you refuse, let me explain something." She leaned forward, elbows on her desk. "Yesterday morning, I dropped Lily off at school like I do every morning. I said, 'Have a good day, and I love you.' And I didn't think twice about it because school is supposed to be safe. Buses are supposed to be safe. And then I got a call from the principal saying there'd been an accident, that parents needed to come to the hospital, that she didn't know which children were hurt." Olivia's voice stayed steady, but Jack could see her hands tightening on the edge of the desk. "I drove to St. Mary's going 80 miles an hour. I ran into the emergency room, and they told me my daughter had stopped breathing, that a stranger had performed CPR on the side of the highway, that she was alive because of him. They told me her backpack had trapped her in the back of the bus, and you'd cut her free. They told me you'd carried her out seconds before the explosion." She stood again, pacing now. "Do you have children, Mr. Miller?" "A son, Evan. He's 8. "Then you understand. You understand that there is no amount of money, no gesture, nothing I could possibly do that would be enough. That check is not payment. It's me trying to do something, anything, to show you that my daughter's life has value to me." Jack looked at the check again. $50,000. Enough to pay off his truck, replace the tires, buy Evan new shoes and clothes, pay rent for the next year. Get ahead for once instead of constantly scrambling to stay afloat. But taking it felt wrong somehow, like he was profiting from a tragedy. What if I said I wanted something else instead? Jack heard himself say. Olivia stopped pacing. What do you mean? I mean, Jack set the check on her desk. I don't need charity. I work for a living, I pay my bills. But if you really want to thank me, help me understand something. That bus, how did it catch fire? I've worked on vehicles for 15 years, and buses don't just spontaneously combust. Something caused that. A shadow crossed Olivia's face. The preliminary investigation suggests it was a mechanical failure in the engine compartment. The bus was 18 years old, poorly maintained. The school district has been cutting transportation budgets for years. And no one noticed the problem before it put kids in danger. Apparently not. Jack felt anger stirring in his gut, the same anger that had driven him as a volunteer firefighter, the anger at preventable disasters and bureaucratic negligence. That's bullshit. Someone should have caught it, should have fixed it before it became a death trap. I agree. Olivia's eyes met his, and Jack saw something hard there, something sharp. Which is why I'm planning to do something about it. What do you mean? I mean, I'm using every ounce of influence I have to make sure this never happens again. I'm already in talks with the school board about funding new buses. I'm hiring a team to audit every vehicle in the district's fleet, and I'm pushing for new safety regulations that will require more frequent inspections. She smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. It was the smile of someone who'd decided to wage war. Money can't buy back what was almost lost yesterday, Mr. Miller, but it can damn sure buy change. Jack found himself reassessing this woman. She wasn't just a rich CEO offering guilt money. She was someone who'd been terrified for her child and was channeling that terror into action. He could respect that. I still don't want the check, Jack said. Olivia sighed. You're a stubborn man. I've been told that before. What do you want then? There must be something. Jack thought about it. Thought about his son. About the life they had. About all the things that money could fix. But then he thought about Lily, about her small unconscious body in his arms, and he knew what mattered more than any of it. I want to know she's okay, Jack said simply. I want to know that she grows up safe and happy and doesn't have nightmares about that bus for the rest of her life. That's what I want. Something in Olivia's expression softened. You could visit her at the hospital. She'd like that, I think. To meet the man who saved her. I don't know if that's a good idea. Might scare her. Mr. Miller, my daughter is 7 years old, and yesterday she experienced something traumatic. But she also experienced someone risking everything to keep her safe. Children understand that kind of heroism in ways adults forget. Olivia pulled out her phone, typed something quickly. I'm texting you the room number. Visit whenever you'd like. I'll make sure the nurses know to let you in. Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, saw the message from an unknown number. Room 412, St. Mary's Hospital. Below it, thank you for everything. Ms. Grant, Olivia, I appreciate this, but I really can't take your money. Then consider it a college fund for your son. She pushed the check back toward him. Evan, you said? 8 years old? College is expensive, Mr. Miller. Let me help with that. It was a smart move, reframing it as for Evan instead of for Jack. Harder to refuse when it was for his kid's future. And God knew Jack had no college savings, no nest egg, nothing put away for the day Evan would need it. You played dirty, Jack said. I played a win. Olivia's smile was genuine this time. And I win by making sure the people who deserve help actually get it. Take the check, visit my daughter, and let me do this one thing to balance the cosmic scales. Jack picked up the check, folded it carefully, and tucked it into his pocket. It felt heavy there, like carrying around a live grenade. Thank you. No, Mr. Miller, thank you. Rebecca appeared at the office door. Impeccable timing, like she'd been listening for the right moment. Ms. Grant, your 11 o'clock is here. Tell them I'll be 5 more minutes. Olivia stood, and Jack stood too, recognizing a dismissal when he saw one. But she walked around the desk, closing the distance between them, and for a moment she just looked at him. Really looked at him, like she was memorizing his face. Yesterday I thought I was going to lose everything that matters, she said quietly, and you gave it back to me. I will never forget that, Jack Miller. Never. Then she did something that surprised him. She hugged him. It was brief, almost awkward, the embrace of someone who didn't often show physical affection. But it was sincere, and when she pulled back, Jack saw tears on her cheeks that she quickly wiped away. Go see Lily, Olivia said. She'll be happy to meet you. Jack nodded, unable to find words, and let Rebecca escort him back to the elevator. As the doors closed and he began his descent from the 40th floor, he pulled out the check again, staring at the zeros. $50,000. For doing the right thing, for saving a child's life. It didn't feel real. None of this felt real. The bus ride to St. Mary's Hospital took 20 minutes. Jack spent the whole trip staring out the window, watching the city roll past, his mind spinning. He should go to work. Rodriguez would understand, but the shop needed him. They were short-staffed as it was. He should pick up Evan from school. He should go home and sleep because his body still ached from yesterday. But instead, he got off at the hospital stop and walked through the automatic doors into the sterile, antiseptic-scented lobby. Room 412 was on the pediatric floor. Jack took the elevator up, feeling increasingly nervous. What was he supposed to say to a 7-year-old who'd nearly died? How did you have that conversation? The nurse's station was busy, phones ringing, staff moving with purposeful efficiency. Jack approached the desk. Excuse me, I'm here to see Lily Grant, room 412. Her mother said, Mr. Miller? A nurse looked up and her face broke into a smile. Oh my God, you're the man from the bus. We've all seen the video. You're a hero. I'm just visiting, Jack said, uncomfortable with the attention. Is Lily... Can I see her? Of course. She's doing much better today. Room 412 is just down the hall, second door on the right. Jack walked down the corridor past rooms with colorful decorations and get-well balloons, past children in wheelchairs and parents with worried faces. He found room 412 and paused outside, hand on the doorframe. Through the small window he could see Lily propped up in bed, surrounded by stuffed animals. Her dark hair was clean now, no longer matted with soot, pulled into 2 neat pigtails. She was drawing something on a tablet, tongue poking out in concentration. An IV line ran into her small arm, and a monitor beeped softly beside her bed, but otherwise she looked healthy, alive. Jack knocked gently. Lily looked up, and her eyes went wide. Mom, he's here! The door opened from inside, and Olivia appeared. She must have come straight from the office, still in the white suit, though she'd taken off the jacket. Her expression softened when she saw Jack. You came. Said I would. Lily, this is Mr. Miller. He's the one who helped you yesterday. Jack stepped into the room, suddenly self-conscious. Lily was staring at him with open curiosity, her head tilted to one side. Hi, Lily, Jack said. How are you feeling? My throat hurts, Lily said matter-of-factly, and I have to stay in the hospital even though I'm not sick anymore. Mom says it's because the doctors want to make sure I'm okay. That's smart. Doctors know what they're doing. Are you really the one who saved me from the fire? Jack glanced at Olivia, who nodded encouragingly. Yeah, I guess I am. Did it hurt when the bus exploded? A little bit, but I'm okay now. Lily studied him seriously, then held up her tablet. I drew a picture. But... Want to see? Jack moved closer. The drawing was done in bright digital colors. A yellow bus with red and orange flames, stick figures running away, and one larger stick figure carrying a smaller one. Above it, in careful 7-year-old handwriting, The hero who saved me. Something in Jack's chest cracked open. That's really good, Lily. Mom says you carried me out. I don't remember that part. I remember the fire and being scared and someone telling me to stay awake. Was that you? Yeah, that was me. Why did you tell me to stay awake? How did you explain smoke inhalation and oxygen deprivation to a child? Because I needed you to keep fighting, and you did. You fought really hard, and that's why you're okay now. Lily seemed to consider this. Then she set down the tablet and looked at him with those serious dark eyes. Thank you for saving me. The simple sincerity of it, no drama, no tears, Just a child thanking an adult for doing something good hit Jack harder than any of Olivia's elaborate gratitude. You're welcome, sweetheart. Do you have any kids? I have a son. His name is Evan, and he's 8. That's only 1 year older than me. Does he like to draw? I don't know if he likes to draw, but he likes robots and video games. I like robots too. Maybe we could be friends, Jack smiled. Maybe. They talked for a while, Lily showing him more drawings, telling him about school and her dog Biscuit, and how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. Normal kid stuff, like yesterday's horror had already started to fade in her mind. Jack hoped it would stay that way. Hoped she'd be one of the lucky ones who didn't carry the trauma forever. Eventually, a nurse came in to check Lily's vitals, and Olivia walked Jack out into the hallway. She likes you, Olivia said. She's a good kid. She is. Olivia leaned against the wall, and Jack could see the exhaustion in her face now that she wasn't in CEO mode. I haven't slept since it happened. Every time I close my eyes, I see that bus on the news. I see the flames, and I think about how close I came to... She stopped, biting her lip. She's okay, Jack said gently. She's going to be fine. Because of you. Because she's tough. Kids are resilient. Olivia looked at him for a long moment. You really don't see it, do you? How extraordinary what you did was. I see a lot of people standing around with cameras while children were burning. I see a bus that should have been replaced 10 years ago still hauling kids. I see a system that failed, and I'm angry about it. Jack crossed his arms. But no, I don't see myself as extraordinary. I see myself as someone who did what needed doing. That's exactly what makes you extraordinary. Jack didn't know how to respond to that, so he changed the subject. The check you gave me. I'll put it toward Evan's college, like you said. Thank you for that. You're welcome. And Jack? She pulled a business card from her pocket and handed it to him. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, call me. Day or night. I owe you a debt I can never repay, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying. Jack took the card. Embossed lettering, expensive paper, Olivia Grant, CEO, Grant Holdings, her direct office line, and her personal cell phone number. I should get going, Jack said. I've got a shift at the auto shop tonight. You work at an auto shop? Rodriguez Auto Repair, East Side. Been there about 3 years. Olivia's expression shifted. Surprise, maybe, or curiosity. You're a mechanic? Yeah, why? Nothing, I don't know what I assumed you did for a living, but that wasn't it. She smiled slightly. Though I suppose it makes sense. You knew the bus engine had failed, knew it wasn't just spontaneous. Most people wouldn't catch that. Most people don't spend their days elbow deep in engines. No, they don't. Olivia was looking at him differently now, like she was seeing him in a new light. A mechanic who used to be a firefighter. An interesting combination. Volunteer firefighter, and I quit 2 years ago. May I ask why? Jack hesitated. He didn't talk about Sarah, didn't talk about the accident, didn't talk about any of it with anyone. But something about Olivia, maybe the vulnerability in her eyes, maybe the shared experience of nearly losing someone, made him want to answer honestly. I lost my wife, car accident. I was there when it happened, tried to save her, couldn't. After that, I couldn't do the firefighting anymore. Couldn't be the guy who runs into danger. I had Evan to think about, and he'd already lost his mother. He couldn't lose me too. I'm sorry, Olivia said softly. That must have been devastating. It was. Still is, some days. Jack looked back through the window at Lily, happily drawing in her hospital bed. But you move forward. You keep going for your kid. That's what parents do. Yes, that's exactly what parents do. Olivia followed his gaze. I lost my husband 3 years ago. Cancer. Lily was only 4. She barely remembers him now. I'm sorry too. So we're both single parents doing our best. Olivia's smile was sad but genuine. Though I imagine our experiences are quite different. Yeah, I imagine they are. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, two people from completely different worlds united by loss and love and the fierce determination to protect their children. I should let you go, Olivia said finally. But thank you again for visiting, for everything. Jack nodded and headed toward the elevator. As he waited for it to arrive, he pulled out Olivia's business card, turning it over in his hands. He should throw it away. Should forget about this whole thing and go back to his normal life. But something told him that wasn't going to happen. Something told him that yesterday's fire had burned away more than just a bus. It had burned away the wall Jack had built around himself, the careful distance he'd maintained from anything that might require him to be a hero again. And now there was no going back. The elevator doors closed, and Jack rode down in silence, Olivia's business card still in his hand. He should have felt relief. The visit was over. He'd done his duty. Now he could go back to his life. But instead, he felt unsettled, like something fundamental had shifted beneath his feet, and he wasn't sure where solid ground was anymore. By the time he reached the hospital lobby, his phone was buzzing again. Rodriguez, his boss at the auto shop. "Jack, man, you coming in today or what? We got 3 cars backed up and Tommy called in sick again." "Yeah, I'm coming. Give me 45 minutes. "You sure? I saw the news, saw what you did. You should take some time, rest up." "I'm fine. I'll be there." He wasn't fine. His neck still hurt where the burns were healing. His ribs ached every time he took a deep breath, and exhaustion pulled at him like a physical weight. But work meant normalcy, meant not thinking about burning buses and unconscious children and rich women who looked at him like he'd hung the moon. Rodriguez Auto Repair sat on a corner lot on the east side, surrounded by a chain-link fence and a hand-painted sign that had been there since the 80s. It wasn't fancy, just a garage with 3 bays, an office that smelled like old coffee and transmission fluid, and a waiting area with magazines from 2019. But it was honest work, and Rodriguez treated his people fair, and that counted for something. Jack pulled into the lot in his truck. He'd taken the bus downtown to see Olivia, but one of the cops had dropped his vehicle off last night, and found the whole crew standing outside smoking cigarettes and talking. When they saw him, they erupted into cheers and applause. "There he is, the hero! Man, we saw you on TV like 50 times. That was some crazy shit, Jack. Running into a burning bus?" Jack waved them off, embarrassed. "Come on, guys, we got work to do." But Rodriguez came over and grabbed him in a bear hug, slapping his back hard enough to make Jack wince. "You did good, hermano. Real good. We're all proud of you." "Thanks, boss. Now, can we please get back to work before we lose customers?" They dispersed, still grinning, and Jack threw himself into the familiar routine of diagnostics and repairs. Oil changes, brake jobs, a transmission replacement that would take most of the afternoon. He worked with his hands, let his mind empty out, focused on the simple mechanical logic of how things fit together and came apart. But around 3 o'clock, while Jack was under a Honda Civic checking for an oil leak, Rodriguez's voice echoed through the garage. "Jack, you got a visitor." Jack rolled out from under the car, wiping his hands on a rag. "Tell them I'm working. Trust me, you want to see this one." Curious now, Jack walked toward the office and stopped dead. A black Mercedes sedan sat in the parking lot, looking completely out of place among the beat-up Fords and Toyotas. And standing next to it, checking her phone, was Rebecca Chen, Olivia's assistant from this morning. "Mr. Miller," Rebecca said, looking up with that professional smile. "Sorry to interrupt your work. What are you doing here?" "Ms. Grant asked me to deliver something to you." Rebecca opened the back door of the Mercedes and pulled out a large gift bag with tissue paper sticking out the top. "She wanted you to have this." Jack didn't take the bag. "I already told her I don't need anything." "It's not for you. It's for your son." Ms. Grant thought Evan might enjoy it. That made Jack pause. He took the bag reluctantly, feeling the weight of whatever was inside. "What is it? Why don't you look?" Jack pulled out the tissue paper and found a brand new tablet, one of those expensive ones that cost $500 easy, along with a gift card to some educational app store and a handwritten note on cream-colored stationery. The handwriting was neat, feminine, unmistakably Olivia's. "Jack, Lily wanted to make sure Evan had something to draw with, since she has her tablet at the hospital. She picked this out herself, with some help. I hope it's okay. The app card has some games and learning programs that Lily enjoys. She thought Evan might too. Thank you again for visiting today. It meant more than you know. Olivia." Jack stared at the note, something warm and uncomfortable stirring in his chest. This wasn't just a gift. This was Lily, a 7-year-old who'd nearly died, thinking about his son, wanting to share something with another kid. It was innocent and sweet and completely disarmed every objection Jack wanted to raise. "Tell Ms. Grant thank you," Jack said quietly. "And tell Lily thank you too." "I will." Rebecca paused. "Ms. Grant also wanted me to mention that she's hosting a small reception tomorrow evening at her home. Nothing formal, just family and a few close friends who've been asking about Lily. She'd like you to come, if you're available." "I don't think that's a good idea." "She thought you might say that. She also asked me to mention that Lily has been talking about you nonstop since you left. She's drawn 6 more pictures of the hero who saved her and asked 3 times if you're coming to visit again." Damn it, how was Jack supposed to say no to that? "What time?" he asked. 7 o'clock. I'll text you the address." Rebecca's smile turned genuine. "And Mr. Miller? For what it's worth, I think you're exactly the kind of person Ms. Grant needs in her life right now. Someone real." Before Jack could figure out what that meant, Rebecca was back in the Mercedes and pulling out of the lot, leaving him standing there with a gift bag and more questions than answers. Rodriguez appeared at his elbow. "Fancy lady in a fancy car bringing you fancy presents. You moving up in the world, Jack? Don't start. I'm just saying, you save one rich kid, and suddenly—" "Rodriguez?" All right. But seriously, man, you okay? This whole thing has got to be weird." "Weird doesn't begin to cover it." Jack took the bag to his truck and set it carefully on the passenger seat, then went back to work. But his mind kept drifting, to Olivia's exhausted face in the hospital hallway, to Lily's innocent drawing, to the invitation to tomorrow's reception. He didn't belong in that world. Didn't belong at some fancy gathering where people probably drank wine that cost more than his weekly paycheck and made small talk about things Jack had never heard of. But he'd go. For Lily, because she was a kid who'd been through something terrible, and if seeing him again helped her feel safe, then Jack would swallow his discomfort and show up. He picked up Evan from school at 3:30, and his son climbed into the truck chattering about his day, something about a science project on volcanoes, and how Tyler B. had put a frog in Madison's backpack and made her scream. "Dad, everyone at school knows about the fire. Mrs. Patterson made me stand up in front of the class and tell them about how you're a hero." Jack glanced over. "How'd that make you feel?" "Kind of cool, I guess, but also weird. Like, you're just my dad. You're not supposed to be on TV." "Yeah, well, I didn't exactly plan for that part." "Are you going to be famous now?" "God, I hope not." And Evan was tugging on Jack's sleeve, saying, "Dad, just do it so we can go home." So Jack stood there awkwardly, while the cashier took a selfie with him and then asked him to sign a receipt, which was possibly the strangest thing anyone had ever requested of him. "This is going to be my life now, isn't it?" Jack muttered as they walked to the truck. "At least for a little while," Evan said wisely. "But people forget stuff pretty fast. Remember when that kid in my class brought a snake to school and it got loose? Everyone talked about it for like 2 weeks and now nobody even remembers. Pretty sure this is different than a snake, buddy." At home, Jack made spaghetti while Evan did homework at the kitchen table. The apartment felt smaller somehow, shabbier, after spending the morning in Grant Tower's sleek luxury. Jack noticed things he usually tuned out: the water stain on the ceiling, the crack in the wall behind the TV, the way the refrigerator made a rattling noise that meant the compressor was probably going. After dinner, while Evan watched TV, Jack pulled out the gift bag and called his son over. "Hey, I got something for you today." Evan's eyes went wide when he saw the tablet. "Whoa! Is that for me?" "It's from the little girl I saved, Lily. She wanted you to have it." "The one whose mom is super rich?" "Yeah, that one." Evan took the tablet reverently, turning it over in his hands like it might break. "This is like a really expensive one. Tommy's brother has one and he said it cost a fortune." "It's a nice gift. What do you say we set it up?" They spent the next hour getting the tablet configured, downloading apps, creating an account. Evan was surprisingly good with technology, better than Jack, certainly, and figured out most of it himself. By bedtime, he was already drawing elaborate robots with the stylus, tongue poking out in concentration, just like Lily had done in her hospital bed. "Dad?" Evan looked up. "Can I meet Lily sometime to say thank you for the tablet?" "Maybe. She's still in the hospital, but when she gets out, we'll see. Cool. Evan saved his drawing and set the tablet carefully on his nightstand. I think it's nice that you saved her, even though it was scary. It was pretty scary, Jack admitted, but sometimes you have to do scary things for the right reasons. Like how Mom always said being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid? Jack's throat tightened. Sarah had said that, had said it to Evan when he was nervous about starting kindergarten, had said it to Jack when he'd been unsure about joining the volunteer fire department. Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you're afraid and you do it anyway. Yeah, buddy, just like Mom said. After Evan was asleep, Jack sat on the couch with a beer he didn't really want, and Olivia's business card in his other hand. The apartment was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic and someone's TV through the thin walls. Jack stared at the phone number on the card, thinking about tomorrow's reception, about walking into Olivia Grant's world and trying to pretend he fit there. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but he recognized it as the one that had sent him Lily's hospital room earlier. Rebecca mentioned she delivered Lily's gift. I hope Evan likes it. Also wanted to confirm you're coming tomorrow? Lily keeps asking. Address is 2847 Lakewood Drive. Casual dress, jeans are fine. See you at 7. Oh, casual dress. Jeans are fine. Like Olivia knew he'd be worried about what to wear, knew he'd be feeling out of place already. Something about that consideration made Jack's defenses crack a little further. He texted back, Evan loves the tablet. Thank you. I'll be there tomorrow. The response came almost immediately. Thank you, Jack. It means a lot. Jack set down the phone and finished his beer, wondering what the hell he was getting himself into. Tomorrow night he'd walk into a world of wealth and privilege, surrounded by people who summered in the Hamptons or whatever rich people did. He'd make small talk, probably say something embarrassing, definitely feel like an imposter the whole time. But he'd do it. For Lily. For the little girl with the singed pigtail who'd drawn pictures of him and wanted him to come to her house. The next day dragged. Jack worked the morning shift at Rodriguez, came home and showered, stood in front of his closet trying to decide what casual but not too casual meant when you were visiting a mansion. He settled on dark jeans, his newest pair, only 2 years old, and a button-down shirt that wasn't wrinkled too badly. His work boots were out of the question, so he wore his only other shoes, a pair of sneakers Evan had convinced him to buy last year. You look nice, Dad, Evan said, sprawled on the couch with his new tablet. Where are you going? Remember Lily, the girl from the bus? I'm going to her house to see how she's doing. Can I come? Jack hesitated. He hadn't thought about bringing Evan, had assumed this was something he'd do alone. But then again, Lily had specifically bought Evan a gift. Maybe she'd want to meet him. Let me text and ask if it's okay. He pulled out his phone and sent a message to Olivia. Would it be all right if I brought my son? Evan wants to thank Lily for the tablet. The response came within minutes. Of course, Lily will be thrilled. She's been asking if she can meet him. So Jack found Evan's lease-stained t-shirt, made him put on clean jeans, and they climbed into the truck together. Jack typed the address into his phone's GPS and followed the directions west, through neighborhoods that got progressively nicer as they drove. The houses grew larger, the lawns more manicured, the cars in the driveways more expensive. Lakewood Drive was in the kind of neighborhood that had a guardhouse and a gate. Jack pulled up to the security booth, feeling completely out of place in his beat-up truck, and gave his name to the guard. Miller, Jack, I'm here to see Olivia Grant. The guard checked his list, nodded, and waved them through. 2847 is at the end of Lakewood, on the right. Can't miss it. He wasn't kidding. Jack drove down a tree-lined street past houses that could only be called estates, sprawling properties with iron gates and circular driveways, and architecture that probably had fancy names Jack didn't know. And at the end of the street, behind a tall hedge and a wrought iron fence, was 2847. The gate was open. Jack turned into the driveway and his jaw literally dropped. The house was massive, 3 stories of stone and glass with wings stretching out on either side of a grand entrance. Perfectly maintained gardens flanked the circular drive, where several expensive cars were already parked. A fountain burbled in the center of the circle, and the whole property screamed old money and refined taste. Whoa, Evan breathed. This is like a castle. Yeah, buddy, it kind of is. Jack parked his truck between a BMW and a Lexus, feeling acutely aware of the rust spots on his vehicle and the crack in his windshield. He and Evan climbed out, and for a moment Jack just stood there, staring at the house, wondering if it was too late to turn around and leave. The front door opened. Rebecca appeared, looking elegant in a simple black dress, and waved them over. "Mr. Miller, and you must be Evan. Come in, please." They walked up the stone steps and through the entrance into a foyer that was bigger than Jack's entire apartment. Marble floors, a crystal chandelier, a sweeping staircase that curved up to the second floor. Original art on the walls. Not prints. Actual paintings that were probably worth more than Jack would make in his lifetime. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. "Ms. Grant is in the living room with the other guests," Rebecca said. "Lily's been watching the door for the past 20 minutes, waiting for you to arrive." She led them through the foyer, past rooms that Jack caught glimpses of, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a dining room with a table that could seat 20, a study with leather furniture and more art. Everything was tasteful, expensive, perfect. Everything made Jack feel like he was wearing the wrong clothes, saying the wrong things, breathing the wrong air. Then they entered the living room and Jack saw Olivia. She stood by the windows talking to an older couple wearing a simple navy dress that probably cost more than Jack's truck. Her hair was down tonight, falling in soft waves past her shoulders, and she looked relaxed in a way she hadn't in her office or at the hospital. This was her environment, her world. She looked like she belonged here. Jack definitely did not. But then Olivia saw him, and her whole face lit up. She excused herself from the couple and crossed the room, her smile genuine and warm. "Jack, you came! And Evan!" She crouched down to the boy's level. "It's so nice to meet you. Lily's been very excited about you coming." "Thank you for the tablet, Ms. Grant," Evan said, suddenly shy. "It's really cool." "You're very welcome. And please, call me Olivia. Ms. Grant makes me feel old." She straightened, looking at Jack. "I'm so glad you're both here. Come, let me introduce you to some people, and then we'll find Lily." Jack wanted to protest, didn't want to meet people, didn't want to make small talk, but Olivia was already guiding them toward a small group by the fireplace. There was the older couple she'd been talking to, a man in his 50s with silver hair, and a younger woman with an infant in her arms. "Everyone, this is Jack Miller and his son Evan. Jack is the man who saved Lily's life. Jack, this is my father, Richard Grant, my mother Catherine, my brother Daniel, and his wife Sophie with their daughter Emma." Richard Grant stepped forward and shook Jack's hand with a grip that was firm and assessing. "Mr. Miller, our family owes you a tremendous debt. What you did for Lily was nothing short of heroic. I just did what needed doing, sir. Nevertheless, you have our eternal gratitude. If there's ever anything our family can do for you, please don't hesitate to ask." Catherine Grant was more emotional. Her eyes filled with tears as she took Jack's hand in both of hers. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for bringing our granddaughter back to us." Jack didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Daniel, Olivia's brother, studied Jack with obvious curiosity. "I watched the video about 30 times. That explosion should have killed you. How'd you manage to shield Lily and land safely?" "Old training. You learn to protect the person you're carrying, even if it means you take the impact." "You were a firefighter?" "Volunteer, a while back." "Well, your training saved my niece's life. That's not something we'll forget." Before the conversation could continue, a small voice shouted from somewhere else in the house. "He's here! Mom, he's here!" Lily came running into the room, still in pajamas because apparently the doctors had told Olivia to keep her comfortable and resting. But she looked healthy, energetic, completely unlike the pale, unconscious girl Jack had carried from the bus. She ran straight to Jack and hugged his legs without hesitation. "You came! I told Mom you'd come!" Jack looked down at her, something in his chest going tight. "Hey, Lily, you look like you're feeling better." "I got to come home today. The doctor said I'm all okay now." She pulled back and noticed Evan standing shyly behind Jack. "Is this Evan?" "Yeah, this is my son. Evan, this is Lily." "Hi," Evan said quietly. "Thanks for the tablet." "You're welcome. Do you like drawing? I love drawing. I've been drawing pictures of the fire and of your dad saving me. Want to see?" Without waiting for an answer, Lily grabbed Evan's hand and pulled him toward the hallway. "Come on! They're in my room." Evan glanced back at Jack, who nodded permission, and then the two kids disappeared, leaving the adults behind. Olivia laughed softly. Well, that was efficient. I should have known she'd monopolize Evan immediately. Kids have a way of cutting through the awkwardness, Jack said. Would you like a drink? We have wine, beer, some cocktails. Beer would be great. Olivia led him to a bar area near the windows where bottles and glasses were arranged with the kind of precision that suggested a professional had set everything up. She handed Jack a beer, some craft brand he'd never heard of, and poured herself a glass of white wine. How are you doing? Olivia asked. Really? Honestly? Feeling pretty out of my depth. Because of the house? Because of all of it. The house, the people, the whole situation. Jack gestured vaguely. I don't belong here, Olivia. Why not? Because I'm a mechanic from the east side who drives a truck held together with rust and prayers. He trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. I'm what? You own half the city. You live in a house that could fit my apartment 10 times over. You have art on your walls that's probably worth more than I'll make in my life. We're from different worlds. Olivia was quiet for a moment, sipping her wine. Then she said, You know what I thought when I first saw you yesterday? Standing in my office in your work clothes with those bandages on your neck? That I looked like I didn't belong there? No, I thought, this is what a real person looks like. Not someone polished and rehearsed, not someone trying to impress me or get something from me, just someone genuine. She met his eyes. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world, Jack? I imagine pretty rare. Most people who meet me see dollar signs. They see connections, opportunities, favors they can ask for. They don't see me. They see what I can do for them. Olivia's voice was soft but intense. But you? You tried to refuse my money. You said you just wanted to make sure Lily was okay. You came to the hospital not because you wanted something, but because you cared. That's... She paused, searching for words. That's everything. Jack didn't know what to say. He took a long drink of his beer, buying time. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, Olivia continued. I just want you to understand that you're welcome here. Not because of what you did, but because of who you are. You're good, Jack Miller, and good people are always welcome in my home. Before Jack could respond, Lily's voice echoed down the hallway. Mom, can Evan stay for dinner? Please? Olivia smiled. Looks like you might be here a while. Dinner was actually pleasant, despite Jack's initial anxiety. The gathering was small, just family and a couple of close friends, and the atmosphere was warm rather than formal. They ate in a dining room with that enormous table, but everyone clustered at one end so it felt almost intimate. The food was catered, some kind of fancy Italian, and there was more of it than 10 people could possibly eat. Lily and Evan sat together, already acting like old friends, comparing drawings on their tablets and giggling at private jokes. Watching them, Jack felt some of his tension ease. Evan was happy. That mattered more than anything else. Richard Grant, seated to Jack's left, turned out to be surprisingly easy to talk to. He asked about Jack's work at the auto shop, genuinely curious about the mechanics of engine repair, and shared stories about his own early career working his way up in real estate. Catherine was warm and grandmotherly, making sure everyone had enough food and asking Evan gentle questions about school that put the boy at ease. Daniel and his wife Sophie were friendly too, though they left early because baby Emma was fussy. That left just the Grant senior generation, Olivia, Lily, Jack, and Evan, a much smaller, more manageable group. After dinner, Olivia suggested the kids play in Lily's room while the adults had coffee in the living room. Lily dragged Evan off again, and Jack found himself sinking into a leather armchair that was probably worth more than his monthly rent, holding a cup of coffee that was definitely better than anything he'd ever made at home. So Jack, Richard said, settling into his own chair, Olivia tells me you used to be a volunteer firefighter. Yes, sir. 5 years with Station 7 on the south side. And you stopped 2 years ago? Jack glanced at Olivia, wondering how much she'd shared. I had personal reasons for stepping away. Fair enough. But it seems to me that once a firefighter, always a firefighter. You proved that when you ran into that bus. That was different. That was instinct, Catherine finished gently. You saw children in danger and you acted. That's who you are, Jack. That's not something you can just turn off. Jack wanted to argue, wanted to explain that he'd tried to turn it off, tried to be someone who didn't run toward danger anymore. But sitting in this room, with these people who'd welcomed him despite the gulf between their worlds, he found he didn't have the energy for that argument. Maybe you're right, he said quietly. They talked for another hour, easier conversation now, less formal. Richard asked about Evan, about raising a son alone, and Jack found himself opening up more than he'd intended, about the struggle to balance work and parenting, about the guilt of never having enough time or money, about the small victories and the daily challenges. Olivia listened mostly, occasionally adding a comment about her own experience as a single parent, the challenges of raising Lily while running a company. There was a kinship there, Jack realized. Different circumstances, different resources, but the same fundamental struggle of doing your best for your child while feeling like it was never quite enough. Around 9 o'clock, Richard and Catherine excused themselves. It was late for them, and they had an early morning. They both hugged Jack goodbye, which surprised him, and made him promise to visit again soon, which surprised him even more. "I think they like you," Olivia said after they'd gone. "They're good people." "They are. And they mean it, about visiting. My father doesn't issue invitations lightly." Olivia set down her wine glass. "Should we check on the kids? It's been suspiciously quiet." They walked upstairs, Jack trying not to gawk at the second floor, which was somehow even more impressive than the first, and found Lily's bedroom. Olivia opened the door quietly. Both kids were asleep. Lily in her bed, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Evan curled up in a beanbag chair by the window, Lily's tablet still in his hands, displaying a half-finished drawing. "Well," Jack whispered, "that's adorable. Let me get you a blanket for him. He looks comfortable there. I should probably get him home. It's a school night. Or..." Olivia looked at Jack thoughtfully. "You could both stay. I have plenty of guest rooms. Evan clearly doesn't want to move, and honestly, after the week we've all had, maybe a quiet night in a safe place is what everyone needs." Jack wanted to refuse, maintaining boundaries, keeping distance, all those things he told himself were important, but looking at his son sleeping peacefully, at the way Lily had already pulled Evan into her world with innocent, uncomplicated friendship, he found he didn't want to disturb it. "If you're sure it's not an imposition..." "Jack, I have 6 bedrooms. It's not an imposition." So Jack stayed. Olivia set him up in a guest room that was bigger than his living room, with a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud and an ensuite bathroom with more towels than one person could use. She lent him some clothes to sleep in, a t-shirt and sweatpants that had belonged to her late husband. Daniel had been about Jack's size, and bid him good night. Jack lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning. 2 days ago, his life had been simple, predictable. Work, bills, Evan, rinse and repeat. Now he was sleeping in a mansion. His son was making friends with a girl whose family could buy and sell him 1,000 times over. And Olivia Grant kept looking at him like he was something precious that needed protecting. It was too much, too fast, too different from everything he knew. But when Jack finally fell asleep, he didn't dream about burning buses or dying children. He dreamed about Olivia's smile, about Lily and Evan laughing together, about what it might be like to belong in a world he'd never imagined for himself. And when he woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through expensive curtains and the sound of children's laughter echoing through the house, Jack realized that maybe, just maybe, his life had changed in ways he couldn't undo, whether he was ready for it or not. Jack woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, which was disorienting because he never had bacon in his apartment and his coffee maker had broken 3 months ago. For a confused moment, he thought he was dreaming. Then he remembered where he was. The guest room looked even more impressive in daylight. Morning sun poured through windows that overlooked an immaculate backyard with a pool, a tennis court, and gardens that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. Jack sat up, running a hand through his hair, and checked his phone. 7:15 a.m. He'd slept better than he had in months, which felt wrong somehow. He shouldn't be comfortable here, in this borrowed bed, wearing a dead man's clothes. He found his jeans from yesterday, pulled them on with the borrowed t-shirt, and ventured out into the hallway. The house was quiet except for sounds coming from somewhere below. Voices, the clink of dishes, more of that incredible bacon smell. Jack followed his nose downstairs and found the kitchen. It was enormous, all gleaming appliances and marble countertops, with an island in the center big enough to land a small plane on. Olivia stood at the stove wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking more human and less CEO than Jack had ever seen her. She was flipping pancakes while Lily sat at the island coloring, and Evan watched with the kind of fascination kids reserved for truly impressive cooking. "Mom makes the best pancakes," Lily was saying. "She puts chocolate chips in them and everything." "My dad usually makes cereal," Evan replied, which made Jack wince a little. "Good morning," Olivia said, turning at the sound of Jack's footsteps. Her smile was warm, genuine, and did something complicated to Jack's chest. "Coffee's in the pot. Mugs are in the cabinet above." "You didn't have to make breakfast." "I wanted to. Besides, Lily informed me that Evan has never had homemade chocolate chip pancakes, which is apparently a crime against childhood." She slid 3 perfect pancakes onto a plate and handed it to Evan. "Syrup's on the table." Jack poured himself coffee, better than the hospital coffee, better than anything from a diner, and sat at the island next to his son. Evan was already demolishing the pancakes with the single-minded focus of an 8-year-old presented with sugar and chocolate for breakfast. "These are really good," Evan said through a mouthful. "Like really, really good." "I'm glad you like them." Olivia started another batch, and Jack noticed how comfortable she looked doing this. How normal, like maybe underneath the business suits and the power and the wealth, she was just a mom making breakfast for kids. "Jack, how did you sleep?" "Better than I have in a long time, actually. That bed is incredible." "Guest room mattresses are important. You never know when you'll need to host someone." She glanced at him, something unreadable in her expression. "I'm glad you stayed, both of you." Lily looked up from her coloring. "Can Evan come over again? We didn't finish our robot drawing last night." "That's up to Evan's dad, sweetheart." 2 pairs of eyes turned to Jack, one 7-year-old and pleading, one 8-year-old and hopeful. "We'll see," Jack said, which was parent speak for probably yes, but I need to maintain some illusion of authority. They ate breakfast together, the 4 of them, and it felt surreal, domestic, like they were a family instead of 2 single parents from completely different worlds who'd been thrown together by chance and fire. Evan and Lily chattered about school and games and whether robots or dinosaurs were cooler. Olivia asked Jack about his plans for the day, whether he had to work, what time Evan needed to be at school. "I've got the morning off," Jack said. "Evan's school starts at 8:30. I'm working the afternoon shift at Rodriguez, noon to 8. What about Evan after school?" "There's an after-school program. I pick him up around 8:30. We have dinner. He does homework. Bed by 9. Same routine every day." Olivia was quiet for a moment, and Jack could practically see her mind working. That's a long day for him. 3 hours in before school care, then a full school day, then another 4 hours of after school. "It's what we can afford." Jack heard the defensiveness in his own voice and tried to soften it. "I do the best I can with what I have." "I know you do." "I wasn't criticizing." Olivia poured herself more coffee. "I was thinking, if you ever need someone to pick Evan up, or if you want him to have somewhere to go besides the after-school program, he's welcome here. Lily would love the company, and I work from home most afternoons anyway." Jack set down his fork. "Olivia, that's a generous offer, but I can't..." "Can't what?" "Let someone help you?" "Except that maybe having a friend and some support isn't charity, it's just what people do for each other." "We barely know each other." "We know enough. I know you saved my daughter's life. I know you're a good father doing everything you can to give your son a decent childhood. I know you're proud and stubborn, and you don't like accepting help." Olivia's gaze was level, challenging. "But I also know that sometimes pride is expensive, and kids don't care about pride. They just want to feel safe and happy, so I'm offering. Not as the CEO of Grant Holdings, as Lily's mom who would really like her daughter to have a friend, especially after what she just went through." Jack wanted to argue, wanted to maintain his independence, his boundaries, all those walls he'd built so carefully. But Evan was looking at him with those hopeful eyes, and Lily was bouncing in her seat saying, "Please, please, please, can Evan come over after school?" And Olivia was right. Kids didn't care about pride. "Let me think about it," Jack said finally. "Fair enough?" After breakfast, Jack thanked Olivia for her hospitality, collected his son, and drove them both home so Evan could change clothes and get his backpack for school. The apartment looked even shabbier after a night in the mansion. The worn carpet, the cramped rooms, the lingering smell of old cigarette smoke from the previous tenant that never quite went away. Evan didn't seem to notice the contrast, just grabbed his stuff and started chattering about how cool Lily's house was and how they were going to finish their robot drawing next time. "Lily's really nice," Evan said as Jack drove him to school. "And Miss Olivia makes really good pancakes. Better than Denny's." "Yeah, buddy, she does." "Do you think we'll see them again?" Jack pulled up to the elementary school drop-off line. "Probably. Lily seems to like you." "I like her too. She's funny, and she doesn't make fun of me for liking robots." Something about that casual comment made Jack's heart hurt. He'd known Evan sometimes had trouble fitting in at school, was a little too quiet, a little too serious for his age. Finding a friend who just accepted him must feel good. "Have a good day, Evan. I'll pick you up at 8:30 tonight, okay?" "Okay. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, buddy." Jack watched his son disappear into the school building, then sat in the drop-off line longer than he should have, thinking about Olivia's offer, about Evan spending time at that big house with its pool and tennis court and pancakes with chocolate chips, about whether he was being selfishly proud by keeping his son stuck in the after-school program when there was a better option available. His phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. "Thank you again for staying. Lily hasn't stopped talking about Evan. Also, and please don't take this the wrong way, I'd like to offer you something. Can we meet for lunch today? My treat. Just to talk." Jack stared at the message. His first instinct was to refuse, but something made him hesitate. Olivia Grant wasn't just throwing money at him. She was trying to connect, trying to bridge the gap between their worlds. And maybe, Jack needed to stop being so damn stubborn about accepting that bridge. He texted back, "Lunch works. Where and when?" "Carlo's on 5th Street, 1 p.m. Jack knew Carlo's. It was one of those places with cloth napkins and prices that weren't listed on the menu. Definitely not his usual lunch spot. He typically ate gas station sandwiches in his truck, but he could handle one fancy meal. "See you there." The morning shift at Rodriguez went by in a blur of oil changes and brake jobs. Jack worked mechanically, his mind elsewhere, until his boss came out of the office looking agitated. "Jack, you got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" Rodriguez rubbed the back of his neck, uncomfortable. "So I got a call this morning from Grant Holdings. Some lady named Rebecca Chen." Jack's stomach dropped. "What did she want?" "She asked about our staffing, our workload, whether we had capacity for a new contract." Rodriguez looked at Jack searchingly. "She mentioned your name specifically. Said Ms. Grant was very impressed with your work and wanted to discuss a potential partnership." "Partnership?" "Something about Grant Holdings maintaining a fleet of vehicles for their properties. Maintenance trucks, company cars, stuff like that. Said they were looking for a reliable shop to handle all the service work. Jack, a contract like that could triple our business. Maybe more." Jack closed his eyes. "Damn it, Olivia." "Rodriguez, I need to be honest with you. I don't think this is about our shop being the best fit. I think this is about Ms. Grant trying to help me out." "Because you saved her kid?" "Yeah." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Then he shrugged. "So what? You did save her kid. Maybe she wants to help you. Maybe she also recognizes we do good work at a fair price. Does the reason matter if it's a legitimate business opportunity?" "It matters to me. I don't want charity." "Then don't think of it as charity. Think of it as networking. Rich people do favors for each other all the time. It's how their world works. This lady wants to throw some business our way and you're too proud to take it? That's not just affecting you, Jack. That's affecting me, Tommy, Marcus, everyone who works here. We could use the extra income. The shop could use the growth." Jack hadn't thought about it that way. He'd been so focused on his own pride that he hadn't considered how refusing Olivia's help might hurt other people. People who had nothing to do with his complicated feelings about accepting charity from a woman who lived in a mansion. "I'm meeting with her today at lunch," Jack said. "I'll find out what she has in mind." "Good. And Jack, maybe consider that accepting help isn't weakness, it's smart business." Rodriguez clapped him on the shoulder. "Now get that Camry finished before noon so you can get to your fancy lunch." Carlo's was exactly as pretentious as Jack expected. White tablecloths, waiters in vests, people speaking in hushed tones about mergers and acquisitions. Jack felt underdressed in his work jeans and button-down, even though he'd washed his hands 3 times to get the grease out from under his nails. Olivia was already there, seated at a corner table, looking elegant in a charcoal gray suit. She stood when she saw him, smiled, and Jack felt that same complicated flutter in his chest that he'd been trying to ignore since yesterday morning. "Thank you for coming," Olivia said as Jack sat down. "I know this is probably outside your comfort zone." "You could say that." A waiter appeared immediately, offering menus and water, explaining the daily specials in detail that made Jack's head spin. After he left, Olivia leaned forward. "How much did Rebecca tell Rodriguez?" "Enough. How much are you planning to meddle in my life, exactly?" "I prefer to think of it as strategic support rather than meddling." Olivia's smile was unapologetic. "Jack, you work yourself to exhaustion. You're talented at what you do. I asked around and everyone says Rodriguez runs a good shop and you're one of the best mechanics on the East Side. Why shouldn't I want to partner with you?" "Because we both know this isn't about me being a good mechanic. It's about both things. Yes, I want to help you, but I also genuinely need reliable vehicle maintenance for my properties, and I'd rather give that business to someone I trust than some corporate fleet service that overcharges and underdelivers." The waiter returned and they ordered, Olivia getting some kind of salad with a name Jack couldn't pronounce, Jack defaulting to a burger because at least he knew what that was. After the waiter left, Olivia pulled out a folder from her bag. "I had my team put together a proposal. It's a 3-year contract for vehicle maintenance across all Grant Holdings properties. Routine service, repairs, emergency call-outs. Your shop would handle everything, bill us monthly, get paid net 30. The estimated annual revenue would be around $200,000, split between parts and labor." Jack nearly choked on his water. 200,000? That's a conservative estimate. Could be more depending on fleet size and usage. Olivia slid the folder across the table. "Before you say no, at least look at it. This is a legitimate business proposal. I had my lawyers draw up a standard contract with fair terms. If Rodriguez thinks it's a bad deal, walk away. But if it's good business, don't refuse it just because you're stubborn about accepting help." Jack opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. Contract terms, fleet specifications, payment schedules. It all looked professional, legitimate, exactly like Olivia said. This wasn't charity disguised as business. This was actual business that happened to benefit him. "Why are you doing this?" Jack asked quietly. "Because I can. Because you deserve it. Because the world is full of people who take and take. And I'm tired of that. I want to support someone who actually deserves support." Olivia's voice was intense, passionate. "You saved my daughter's life, Jack. You asked for nothing in return. Let me give you something anyway. Let me make your life a little easier. Is that so terrible?" When she put it that way, it was hard to argue. Their food arrived. They ate in silence for a few minutes, Jack thinking about the contract, about what $200,000 in annual revenue would mean for Rodriguez's shop. More staff, better equipment, security for everyone who worked there, and for Jack personally. Better pay, more stability, maybe even enough money saved to move Evan out of that shabby apartment into somewhere nicer. "I need to talk to Rodriguez," Jack said finally. "This affects him more than it affects me. But if he thinks it's good business, then, yeah, I'll accept." Olivia's face lit up. "Really?" "Really, but I have one condition." "Name it." "This stays professional. Standard contract, fair pricing, no special treatment. If Rodriguez's work isn't up to your standards, you terminate the contract. No guilt, no obligation. I don't want this to be some indefinite charity that we both feel weird about forever." "Deal." Olivia extended her hand across the table. "Welcome to the Grant Holdings vendor network, Mr. Miller." Jack shook her hand, and something electric passed between them, something that had nothing to do with business contracts and everything to do with the way Olivia's eyes caught the light, the way her smile made him feel seen in a way he hadn't felt since Sarah died. He pulled his hand back quickly, uncomfortable with where his thoughts were going. They finished lunch talking about logistics, when Rodriguez should expect the formal proposal, who would be his point of contact at Grant Holdings, how billing would work. It was all very professional, very businesslike. But underneath the professional conversation, Jack could feel something else building, an awareness, a connection that went beyond gratitude and rescue and business deals. Olivia felt it too. Jack could tell by the way she fidgeted with her napkin, the way she avoided direct eye contact sometimes, the way her laugh came a little too quickly when he said something even mildly funny. They were both dancing around something neither of them wanted to name. After lunch, they stood outside Carlo's in the afternoon sunshine, the city buzzing around them with traffic and pedestrians and the general chaos of downtown. "Thank you," Jack said. "For the contract, for breakfast this morning, for everything. You didn't have to do any of it." "I wanted to." Olivia hesitated, then said, "Jack, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "When you lost your wife, how long did it take before you felt like yourself again?" The question caught Jack off guard. He'd expected more business talk, maybe plans for the kids to get together again. Not this. "I'm not sure I do feel like myself again," Jack admitted. "I feel like a different version of me. Someone who's just going through the motions, trying to be a good dad, trying to keep things together. But the person I was before Sarah died? I don't think he exists anymore." Olivia nodded slowly. "I understand that. After David died, I threw myself into work. Convinced myself that if I just worked hard enough, built the company big enough, made enough money, I could, I don't know, prove that his death wasn't the end of everything, that I could still be successful without him." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out you can be incredibly successful and still feel empty." "Is that how you feel? Empty?" "I felt that way. Until 3 days ago when I thought I was going to lose Lily. When I got that call from the school and drove to the hospital not knowing if my daughter was alive or dead." Olivia's voice cracked slightly. "And then I found out some stranger had risked everything to save her. And I realized I'd been focusing on all the wrong things. The company, the money, the success. None of it matters compared to the people you love." Jack understood that on a fundamental level. He'd learned the same lesson when Sarah died, when everything he thought was important suddenly wasn't. "So what are you going to do different?" Jack asked. "I'm going to be present, really present, with Lily, with my family, with the people who matter. I'm going to stop letting work consume me, and I'm going to—" She trailed off, then met his eyes directly. "I'm going to be honest about what I want." "What do you want?" "I don't know yet, but I think I'm starting to figure it out." There was a charged moment where they just looked at each other, the busy street fading into background noise. Jack felt something shift between them, some acknowledgement of possibility, of potential, of two people who might be ready to stop just surviving and start living again. Then Olivia's phone rang, shattering the moment. She glanced at the screen and sighed. "I have to take this, board meeting crisis. But Jack?" She touched his arm lightly. "Thank you. For lunch, for listening, for being you." "Any time." Jack watched her walk away, phone pressed to her ear, already shifting back into CEO mode. Then he headed to his truck and drove back to Rodriguez's shop, his mind spinning with contracts and possibilities, and the way Olivia's hand had felt on his arm. Rodriguez was thrilled about the Grant Holdings contract. They spent the rest of Jack's shift going over the numbers, discussing what equipment they'd need to upgrade, whether they should hire another mechanic to handle the increased workload. It was exciting and terrifying in equal measure. Growth meant opportunity, but it also meant risk. "This is good, Jack," Rodriguez said as they closed up the shop that evening. "Real good. You did something right saving that little girl." "It wasn't about doing something right. It was about not letting her die." "Yeah, but good things came from it anyway. Sometimes the universe rewards people who deserve it." Jack wasn't sure he believed in cosmic justice, but he couldn't deny that his life had taken some dramatic turns in the past few days. The question was whether those turns would lead somewhere good or somewhere complicated. He picked up Evan from the after-school program right at 8:30, and his son climbed into the truck looking tired. "Long day, buddy?" "Yeah, Mrs. Patterson made us do math worksheets for like an hour. I hate fractions." "Fractions are important. You'll need them when you're older." "That's what everyone says, but I still don't get why." They stopped at a drive-thru for dinner. Jack was too tired to cook, and ate burgers in the truck while parked outside their apartment building. Through the windshield, they could see the news crews were finally gone. The fire story was getting old, replaced by newer tragedies and scandals. "Dad?" Evan said through a mouthful of fries. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you like Ms. Olivia?" Jack nearly choked on his burger. "What kind of question is that?" "I don't know. You just seem different when you're around her. Like, happier, I guess." "I'm happy around you too." "That's different. You're my dad. You have to be happy around me. But with Ms. Olivia, it's like..." Evan struggled to find the words. "It's like how you used to be with Mom, in the old pictures." Jack set down his burger, his appetite suddenly gone. He thought he was being careful, maintaining appropriate boundaries, keeping his confusing feelings about Olivia separate from his role as Evan's father. Apparently, he hadn't been as successful as he thought. "Ms. Olivia is a nice person who I'm helping with some business stuff," Jack said carefully. "That's all." "But what if it was more than that? Would that be okay?" "Why are you asking me this, Evan?" "Because Lily said her mom has been really happy the last couple days. Happier than she's been since Lily's dad died. And I thought maybe..." Evan looked at his dad with those two wise 8-year-old eyes. "Maybe it would be nice if you were happy like that too." Jack's throat tightened. His son was giving him permission to move on, to feel something for someone else, to stop being frozen in grief and guilt, and Jack didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. "It's complicated, buddy." "Everything's complicated when you're a grown-up. That's what Mom used to say." "Yeah, she did say that." Jack pulled Evan into a one-armed hug, careful of the food. "I love you. You know that?" "I know. I love you too." They finished their dinner and headed upstairs to the apartment. Evan did his homework while Jack paid bills and tried not to think about Olivia's smile or the way her voice had cracked when she talked about almost losing Lily. Tried not to think about the possibility of something more than just friendship and business connections. But later that night, after Evan was asleep and Jack was lying in his own bed staring at the water-stained ceiling, his phone buzzed with a text. "Olivia, Lily wants to know if Evan can come over Saturday. She's planning an elaborate robot building competition that apparently requires his specific expertise." Jack smiled despite himself and texted back, "What time?" "Anytime after 10. Stay for lunch?" "I promise I'll make more than just pancakes." Jack hesitated, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Every instinct told him to maintain distance, to keep things from getting too comfortable, too familiar. But Evan's words echoed in his head. "Maybe it would be nice if you were happy like that too." "We'll be there," Jack typed, then hit send before he could second-guess himself. The response came immediately. "Good. I was hoping you'd say yes." Jack set down his phone and closed his eyes, trying to sleep, but all he could see was Olivia's face across the lunch table, the way she'd looked at him like he was someone worth knowing, like he was more than just the mechanic who'd pulled her daughter from a burning bus, like he was someone she might want to let into her carefully controlled world. And despite all his reservations, despite all the logical reasons why getting involved with Olivia Grant was a terrible idea, Jack found himself wanting that too. Wanting to be seen. Wanting to be known. Wanting to feel something other than numb exhaustion and parental duty. Wanting, for the first time in 2 years, to imagine a future that looked different from the endless gray routine of his present. Saturday couldn't come fast enough, and that scared Jack more than running into any burning bus ever had, because fires eventually burned out. But whatever was starting to kindle between him and Olivia felt like something that could burn forever if he let it. The question was whether he was brave enough to let it. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of perfect weather that felt almost scripted. Clear blue sky, warm sunshine, a light breeze that carried the promise of something good. Jack woke early, despite having no reason to, made coffee in the cheap pot he'd bought from a thrift store, and sat at his kitchen table wondering what he was doing. This was supposed to be simple. 2 kids wanted to play together. Their parents would supervise, make small talk, maintain appropriate boundaries. Nothing complicated about it. Except Jack had spent the last 3 nights dreaming about Olivia's smile, and that felt complicated as hell. Evan bounded out of his bedroom at 8 o'clock, already dressed and holding his tablet. "Dad, we need to leave soon. Lily's expecting us at 10 and I want to show her the new robot design I made." "It's 8 in the morning, buddy. We've got 2 hours. "But what if there's traffic?" "It's Saturday. There's never traffic on Saturday." But Evan was too excited to listen to logic, so Jack showered and dressed earlier than necessary, pulling on jeans and a clean blue Henley that Sarah had bought him years ago. He checked himself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man looking back, nervous, uncertain, hopeful. When had he started caring about what he wore to visit someone's house? They left at 9:30, which was still absurdly early, but Evan was practically vibrating with anticipation, and Jack didn't have the heart to make him wait longer. The drive to Olivia's neighborhood felt different this time, less like entering a foreign country and more like visiting somewhere familiar. The guard at the gate recognized Jack's truck and waved them through with a friendly smile. The mansion looked less intimidating in daylight. Still massive, still clearly expensive, but somehow more welcoming. The gardens were in full bloom, flowers Jack couldn't name adding splashes of color to the perfectly manicured lawn. A golden retriever, Biscuit, Jack remembered, was running around the side yard chasing a tennis ball. Jack parked, and Evan was out of the truck before the engine stopped, racing toward the front door. Jack followed at a more measured pace, carrying a bakery box with cookies he'd picked up on the way. It seemed wrong to show up empty-handed, even if Olivia probably had more food in her house than Jack had eaten in his entire life. The door opened before they reached it. Lily stood there in overalls covered in paint stains, her hair in messy pigtails, grinning like Christmas morning. "Evan, you're here! Come on, I set up everything in the playroom!" The two kids disappeared into the house, leaving Jack standing on the doorstep alone. Then Olivia appeared, and Jack's heart did something stupid in his chest. She was wearing jeans and a simple white t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders, no makeup that Jack could see. She looked younger like this, softer, more approachable, less like a CEO and more like just Olivia. "Hi," she said, and there was something shy in her smile that Jack had never seen before. "Hi. I brought cookies. Store-bought, not homemade, but—" Jack held out the box awkwardly. "You didn't have to bring anything." Olivia took the box anyway, her fingers brushing his for just a moment. "But thank you. Come in. Coffee's ready if you want some." Jack followed her inside, through the familiar marble foyer and into a kitchen that smelled like fresh bread and cinnamon. Classical music played softly from speakers built into the walls. Through the windows, Jack could see the backyard pool sparkling in the sunshine. "The kids are going to be occupied for hours," Olivia said, pouring 2 mugs of coffee. "Lily's been planning this robot competition all week. She made blueprints. Evan's been designing too. I think they're more excited about building together than competing. That's probably healthier anyway." Olivia handed him a mug, real ceramic, not the chipped ones Jack used at home, and leaned against the counter. "How have you been? I feel like we've barely talked since lunch on Tuesday." "Good. Busy. Rodriguez and I have been going over the contract details, planning for the expansion. It's a lot." "Good lot or bad lot?" "Good, I think. Scary, but good." Jack sipped his coffee, which was of course excellent. "How's Lily doing? Really?" "Better than I expected. She's had a few nightmares, but mostly she seems okay. Resilient, like you said." Olivia's expression softened. "She talks about you constantly, Mr. Jack this and Mr. Jack that. You've become her hero." "I'm nobody's hero." "Yes, you are. You just don't want to admit it." Olivia set down her coffee and looked at him directly. "Jack, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why are you so uncomfortable with people recognizing what you did?" Jack was quiet for a moment, trying to find words for something he'd never really articulated before. "Because being a hero means you saved everyone. And I couldn't save Sarah. I was there, I tried, I did everything I was trained to do, and it wasn't enough. So when people call me a hero for saving Lily, it feels like a lie. Like I'm taking credit for something when I failed the person who mattered most." Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "Jack, you can't save everyone. That's not how life works. Sometimes terrible things happen and there's nothing anyone can do. That doesn't negate all the people you have saved." "Logically, I know that, but logic and feeling are different things. I understand that better than you might think." Olivia moved closer, and Jack could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. "When David was dying, I threw money at every specialist, every experimental treatment, every possibility. I convinced myself that if I just tried hard enough, spent enough, refused to accept it, he'd somehow survive. And when he died anyway, I felt like I'd failed. Like all my power and resources meant nothing because I couldn't save the one person I loved. How did you get past that? I'm not sure I have. I just learned to carry it differently. Olivia's voice was soft, vulnerable in a way Jack hadn't heard before. And then I almost lost Lily, and all those feelings came rushing back. The powerlessness, the terror, the certainty that nothing I did mattered, except this time someone else did what I couldn't. You saved her when I would have been helpless. Olivia, no, let me finish. I need you to understand something. She took a breath. Meeting you, getting to know you these past few days, it's reminded me that money and power don't actually solve the problems that matter. Connection does. Kindness does. Showing up does. You showed up for my daughter when she needed you most, expecting nothing in return. That's not just heroic, Jack. That's extraordinary. Jack didn't know what to say. He wanted to deflect, to minimize, to do what he always did when confronted with sincere emotion. But something about the way Olivia was looking at him, open, honest, hopeful, made him want to be honest too. You scare me, Jack said quietly. Olivia blinked. I scare you? Not in a bad way. In a this could change everything way. In a I've spent 2 years keeping myself numb and safe and you're making me feel things I'm not sure I'm ready to feel way. Oh. Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. Jack, I'm scared too. Of what? Of wanting something I'm not sure I deserve. Of letting someone into my life who might actually see past all the armor. Of trusting again after losing someone I loved. She smiled shakily. Of falling for a mechanic from the east side who makes me feel more alive than I have in years. The words hung between them, impossible to take back, changing everything. Jack set down his coffee mug carefully, his hands not quite steady. Olivia, we barely know each other. This is fast, too fast. I know. And we're from completely different worlds. What I make in a year, you probably spend on shoes. I don't actually spend that much on shoes, but point taken. I have a son who comes first, always. I won't do anything that might hurt him. I would never ask you to. Lily comes first for me too. Olivia stepped closer, close enough that Jack could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. But Jack, maybe our kids aren't the only ones who deserve to be happy. Maybe we deserve that too. I don't know how to do this, Jack admitted. Dating a woman like you, being in your world, I'll screw it up. I don't know how to do this either. I haven't dated since David died. I've forgotten how to be anything other than CEO and mom. We'll probably both screw it up. Olivia reached out tentatively, her hand finding his. But maybe we could try anyway? Jack looked down at their joined hands, her skin soft and manicured, his rough and scarred from years of manual labor. They shouldn't fit together. Nothing about this made logical sense, but Evan's words echoed in his head. Maybe it would be nice if you were happy like that too. And standing here in this kitchen with Olivia looking at him like he was something precious, Jack realized he wanted to be happy, wanted to take the risk, wanted to see where this impossible thing between them might lead. Okay, Jack said, let's try. Olivia's smile was brighter than the sunshine streaming through the windows. Yeah? Yeah, but we go slow. We figure this out as we go. And if it doesn't work, we handle it like adults and make sure our kids don't suffer for it, Olivia finished. Agreed. They stood there for a moment, just holding hands, not quite ready to figure out what came next. Then Lily's voice echoed through the house. Mom, we need more tape, and Evan says we need aluminum foil. Olivia laughed, the tension breaking. I should probably supervise before they destroy the playroom. Probably a good idea. But neither of them moved. Finally, Olivia squeezed Jack's hand and let go, stepping back with visible reluctance. Come on, let's go see what kind of robots our children are building. The playroom was chaos, a wonderful creative chaos that made Jack smile. Evan and Lily had spread supplies across every surface: cardboard boxes, tape, markers, aluminum foil, paper towel tubes, googly eyes, and about 1,000 other craft items. They were building side by side, collaborating more than competing, arguing cheerfully about whether robots needed antenna or if that was just a movie thing. Dad, look at this. Evan held up something that might have been a robot or might have been abstract art. It's got rotating arms and everything. That's impressive, buddy. Mr. Jack, can you help us with the legs? They keep falling off, Lily asked, holding up a cardboard creation that was indeed missing structural integrity in the lower extremities. Jack spent the next hour on the floor with the kids, using his mechanical knowledge to help them engineer more stable robots. Olivia joined them, contributing artistic elements and enthusiastically praising even the wonkiest creations. It felt domestic and normal and perfect in a way Jack hadn't experienced since Sarah died. This is what happiness feels like, Jack thought, watching Evan laugh at something Lily said. He'd forgotten. 2 years of just surviving, just getting through each day, and he'd forgotten what it felt like to actually enjoy being alive. They broke for lunch around 1, pizza that Olivia ordered from a place that definitely didn't deliver to Jack's neighborhood, expensive and gourmet with toppings like prosciutto and arugula. The kids ate in the playroom, too engrossed in their robot construction to care about proper meal etiquette. Jack and Olivia ate at the kitchen island, stealing glances at each other between bites, both of them hyper-aware of the shift that had happened between them. So what happens now? Jack asked. With us, I mean. I don't know. What do normal people do when they're starting to date? I think they go on dates. Movies, dinner, that kind of thing. That sounds nice. Olivia smiled. Although finding a babysitter might be complicated. Lily's regular sitter is her grandmother, and if I tell my mother I'm going on a date, she'll have us married off by Christmas. Evan usually stays with my neighbor Mrs. Chen when I work late. She's like 80, but she loves him, though I'd have the same problem with the gossip. Maybe we could do something with the kids? Make it a family thing until we figure out how serious this is? Jack considered that. It made sense. Let the kids get more comfortable with each other, see how everyone got along, avoid the pressure of formal dates. But it also felt backwards, domestic, before they'd even kissed. As if reading his mind, Olivia said, or we could be slightly unconventional about this. How unconventional? Well, the kids are occupied. They'll be building robots for another 2 hours at least. There's a very nice patio out back, completely private, with a view of the garden. Olivia's voice was light, but her eyes were serious. We could sit out there, talk, get to know each other better. Just the two of us. That sounds suspiciously like a date. Does it? I hadn't noticed. Olivia stood, extending her hand. Come on, Jack Miller, let me show you my garden. The patio was as beautiful as everything else about Olivia's property. Comfortable furniture, flowering plants, and artistic arrangements. The pool shimmering nearby. They sat on a cushioned love seat overlooking the roses, and Olivia tucked her feet under her in a way that made her seem younger, less guarded. Tell me about Sarah, Olivia said, if you're comfortable talking about her. Jack was surprised by the question. Most people avoided mentioning his dead wife, like saying her name might break him. What do you want to know? Whatever you want to tell me. What she was like, how you met, what made you fall in love with her. So Jack told her. About meeting Sarah in college, both of them broke students working night shifts at the same diner. About her laugh, which was too loud and slightly snorty and absolutely perfect. About how she'd supported his decision to join the volunteer fire department, even though it scared her. About the way she danced in the kitchen while cooking dinner, how she'd read bedtime stories to Evan with different voices for every character, how she'd believed Jack could do anything he set his mind to. She sounds wonderful, Olivia said softly. She was. Losing her broke something in me that I don't think will ever fully heal. I understand that. David was my best friend before he was my husband. We met when we were 16, got married at 22, built a life together. When he died, it felt like losing half of myself. Olivia's voice was distant, remembering. Everyone expected me to fall apart. The board of directors at Grant Holdings started circling, thinking I'd step down, that a grieving widow couldn't run a company. That made me angry enough to keep going. I'd show them I could do it alone. But doing it alone isn't the same as being happy. No, it's not. Olivia looked at Jack. I convinced myself that work was enough, that being successful and powerful and wealthy meant I was okay, But I was just existing, going through motions, the same way you've been doing, I think. Probably. And then you ran into that fire, and I was forced to confront how fragile everything is, how quickly it can all disappear, how much I've been wasting time on things that don't matter. Olivia shifted closer, her knee touching his. I don't want to waste time anymore, Jack. What do you want instead? I want to feel something. I want to take risks. I want to see where this thing between us might go, even if it's terrifying. She reached out, her hand cupping his cheek. I want to kiss you. And see if it feels as right as I think it will. Jack's breath caught. Olivia, you can say no. If this is too fast, if you're not ready, just say so. I won't push. But Jack didn't want to say no. He wanted exactly what Olivia wanted. To feel something, to take a risk, to stop being frozen in grief and guilt. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind. And when their lips finally met, it was gentle, tentative, testing. And it felt right. More than right. It felt like coming back to life after a long, cold winter. Olivia made a small sound and deepened the kiss, her hand sliding into Jack's hair. He pulled her closer, years of loneliness and isolation cracking open, letting in light and warmth and possibility. They kissed like people who'd forgotten how good it could feel to connect with someone, to be wanted, to want in return. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Olivia's eyes were bright, her lips swollen, and she looked more beautiful than Jack had ever seen her. Okay, she said shakily. That felt even more right than I thought it would. Yeah. Jack couldn't seem to form more articulate words. His brain was offline, his heart pounding, every nerve ending aware of Olivia pressed against him. We should probably check on the kids. Probably. Neither of them moved. Then Evan's voice echoed from inside. Dad, where are you? We finished the robots and we need judges. Reality crashed back in. Jack and Olivia sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents, both of them laughing at their own ridiculousness. Duty calls, Olivia said, standing and smoothing her hair. Yeah, duty. Jack stood too, trying to look like he hadn't just been kissing his hostess on her patio. For the record, I'm glad we did that. Me too. Olivia's smile was radiant. We should probably do it again sometime. Definitely. They went inside to find Evan and Lily standing in the playroom surrounded by their completed robots, elaborate cardboard creations that barely resembled any robot Jack had ever seen, but were clearly the result of serious creative effort. We need you to judge which one is better, Lily announced. But you have to be fair. No picking your own kid. Jack examined both robots with theatrical seriousness. This is tough. They're both excellent. The engineering on this one is solid, but the artistic design on that one is very creative. So it's a tie? Evan asked hopefully. Sounds like a tie to me, Olivia agreed. The kids accepted this verdict with grace and immediately started planning their next project. Apparently they wanted to build a robot dog now, which would require researching actual dog mechanics and possibly visiting a pet store for inspiration. The afternoon drifted by in easy comfort. They let the kids play in the pool, Olivia lending Evan swim trunks that had belonged to Lily's cousin, while the adults sat on the patio talking about their childhoods, their hopes for their kids, their fears about the future. About everything and nothing, the conversation flowing naturally, comfortably, like they'd known each other for years instead of days. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jack realized he hadn't thought about work or bills or any of his usual stress once all afternoon. He'd just been present, enjoying the moment, letting himself be happy. I should probably get Evan home, Jack said reluctantly. It's almost dinner time, and he's got homework. Stay for dinner, Olivia said immediately. I'll make something or order something. You can't leave when we're having such a nice time. Olivia, please? She took his hand, lacing their fingers together. I'm not ready for you to leave yet. Jack looked at their joined hands, then at the kids playing Marco Polo in the pool, then at Olivia's hopeful face, and he realized he wasn't ready to leave either. Okay, but I'm helping cook. Deal. They made dinner together, pasta with vegetables. Nothing fancy but delicious. The kids ate at the kitchen island, still in their swim clothes, chlorine-scented and happy, chattering about robot dogs and whether they could learn to code and make their robots actually move. After dinner, Lily pulled out a board game, and the four of them played together in the living room while classical music played softly in the background. It felt surreal. Jack and Evan, who lived in a cramped apartment and ate drive-through burgers, sitting in a mansion playing board games with people who probably had more money than some small countries. But it also felt natural. Right. Like maybe they could fit into this world after all. Evan fell asleep halfway through the second game, his head drooping onto Lily's shoulder. Lily giggled and tried to keep playing without disturbing him, but she was clearly getting tired too. "I should get him to bed," Jack said. "You could stay," Olivia offered quietly. "Same as last time. Guest room's ready. Evan's comfortable here." Jack wanted to say yes, wanted to extend this perfect day into a perfect evening and night. But something held him back. Some instinct that they needed to slow down, to not get too comfortable too fast. "I think we should go home tonight," Jack said. "We've got church in the morning." "Well, Evan has Sunday school and I sit in the sanctuary pretending to pay attention, and routine is important for kids." Olivia looked disappointed but nodded. "I understand. But Jack?" She stood and kissed him softly, sweetly, a promise of more to come. "Thank you for today, for being here, for taking a chance on this. Thank you for asking me to." Jack carried Evan to the truck, his son mumbling sleepily about robots and swimming and how Lily was the best friend ever. Jack buckled him in, said goodbye to Olivia one more time with another kiss that left them both breathless, and drove home through the darkening city. The apartment looked exactly the same as it had that morning, but somehow different, smaller, shabbier, more obviously inadequate. But it was home. And maybe it wouldn't be home forever. Maybe things were changing in ways Jack couldn't have imagined a week ago. He carried Evan to bed without waking him, pulled off his shoes but left him in his clothes because the kid was dead to the world. Then Jack stood in his son's doorway for a long moment, watching him sleep, thinking about how much their lives had changed in just a few days. His phone buzzed, a text from Olivia. "Lily made me promise to tell you that today was the best day ever. I think I agree with her. Sweet dreams, Jack." Jack smiled and texted back. Evan said the same thing. "Today was pretty perfect. Good night, Olivia." He should have gone to bed then, should have gotten the sleep he desperately needed before another work week started. But instead, Jack sat at his kitchen table with a beer he didn't really want and Olivia's business card in his hand, the one she'd given him at the hospital a lifetime ago. Except it hadn't been a lifetime. It had been less than a week since the fire, a week since everything changed. Jack thought about Sarah, about whether she'd approve of this. She'd always wanted him to be happy, had made him promise before she died that he'd find someone else eventually, that he wouldn't spend his life alone. At the time, Jack had agreed just to comfort her, never believing he'd actually want anyone else. But he wanted Olivia, wanted her smile, her kindness, her unexpected vulnerability, wanted the way she made him feel seen and valued. Wanted the possibility of building something new with someone who understood loss and survival and the fierce determination to protect your child at all costs. "I think you'd like her," Jack whispered to the empty apartment, to Sarah's memory, to the universe at large. "She's strong and smart, and she makes really good pancakes. And I think maybe I could be happy with her, if you're okay with that." The apartment didn't answer, of course, but Jack felt lighter somehow, like he'd received permission he hadn't realized he was waiting for. He finished his beer, threw the bottle in the recycling, and headed to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, work, bills, the everyday struggle of single parenthood. But it would also bring text messages from Olivia, plans for the kids to get together again, and the knowledge that he wasn't alone anymore, that he had someone in his corner, someone who saw past the grease-stained mechanic to the man underneath, someone who might, possibly, be falling for him as hard as he was falling for her. Jack fell asleep that night with a smile on his face, his dreams filled not with fire and smoke, but with gardens and laughter and the taste of Olivia's kiss. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful coordination. Jack and Olivia saw each other when they could, coffee before work, lunch breaks that ran too long, evenings when the kids had play dates. They were cautious about labeling what they had, about making it official, both of them aware that they were building something that could either become foundation strong or collapse under its own weight. But it felt good. Better than good. It felt right in a way Jack hadn't experienced since Sarah. Olivia challenged him, made him laugh, listened when he talked about his fears and doubts about being a good father. And Jack grounded her, reminded her that life existed outside boardrooms and profit margins, made her slow down and appreciate the small moments. The Grant Holdings contract officially started, bringing Rodriguez's shop more work than they could handle. Jack hired 2 new mechanics and bought the equipment they needed. His paychecks got larger. The bills got easier to pay. He started looking at apartment listings in better neighborhoods, thinking about giving Evan a room that wasn't next to people who fought at 2 in the morning. Evan and Lily became inseparable. They had playdates 3 times a week, video chatted on their tablets every night, and started creating elaborate stories about robot adventures that they'd write and illustrate together. Watching their friendship blossom made both Jack and Olivia realize how lonely their kids had been, how much they'd both needed this. One evening, 6 weeks after the fire, Olivia invited Jack to a charity gala her company was hosting. It was a big deal. Black tie, major donors, the kind of event where decisions got made and deals got closed over champagne and small talk. "I know it's not your scene," Olivia said as they sat on her patio watching the kids play in the yard, "but I'd really like you there. As my date. Official and public." Jack was quiet for a moment. Going public meant questions, attention, photographers. It meant the entire city knowing that the mechanic who'd saved Olivia Grant's daughter was now dating Olivia Grant. The gossip would be intense. "What about the kids?" Jack asked. "If we go public at some fancy gala, everyone will know, and kids at school talk. I don't want Evan dealing with bullies because his dad is dating someone rich and famous." "I've thought about that. We could talk to them first, make sure they're comfortable with it. Lily already knows we've been spending time together. I think she's figured out that we're more than friends. Evan, too. He asked me last week if you were my girlfriend. I didn't know what to say." "What did you say?" "I said I liked you a lot, and we were seeing where things went." He said that was grown-up speak for yes. Olivia laughed. "He's not wrong." She took Jack's hand. "So, will you come to the gala? Be my official date? Let me show the world that I'm with someone extraordinary?" Jack looked at their joined hands, at the easy way they fit together now. 6 weeks ago, he'd been terrified of this. Now? Now he was just ready. "Okay, I'll come to your gala, but you're helping me figure out what black tie means because I don't own a tux." "Deal. And Jack?" Olivia leaned in and kissed him softly. "Thank you for taking this risk with me, for being brave enough to try. You make it easy." The gala was everything Jack expected. Elegant, overwhelming, full of people who moved in circles he'd never dreamed of entering. But Olivia stayed by his side all night, introducing him to donors and board members, her hand in his making it clear they were together. And the way she looked at him, with pride and affection and something deeper that neither of them had said out loud yet, made all the discomfort worth it. They danced to music played by a live orchestra, and Jack was grateful for the dance lessons Sarah had insisted on when they got married. He wasn't smooth, but he could manage a basic waltz without stepping on Olivia's feet. "You're full of surprises," Olivia murmured as they swayed together. "I didn't know mechanics could dance. There's a lot you don't know about me yet. I'm looking forward to finding out." Later, after the gala ended and they'd said goodbye to the last donors, Olivia drove Jack home. Not to her mansion, to his apartment on the east side, the place he'd been embarrassed for her to see but couldn't hide from anymore. She parked on the street and looked up at the shabby building. "This is where you live?" "Yeah, I know it's not much compared to—" "It's perfect," Olivia interrupted, "because it's yours. And someday when Evan's old enough to understand, he'll appreciate that his father worked hard and provided for him with integrity and love. That matters more than square footage." Jack kissed her then, right there in his truck parked outside his apartment building, pouring everything he felt into it. Gratitude and hope, and the beginnings of something that felt a lot like love. "Come upstairs," Jack said when they broke apart. "Meet Mrs. Chen, see where we actually live. If we're doing this for real, you should know all of it." "I'd like that." So Olivia came upstairs, met Mrs. Chen, who was babysitting Evan, and saw Jack's cramped apartment with its thrift store furniture and water-stained ceiling. And she didn't flinch, didn't judge, just looked around with interest and asked questions about the photos on the walls, the drawings Evan had taped to the fridge, the life Jack had built in this small space. "It's a good home," Olivia said finally. "You should be proud of what you've created here. I'm working on better. The new job means I can afford more now. There's no rush, but when you're ready to move, let me know. I know some good neighborhoods, good schools. I can help." They said goodnight with another kiss, and Jack watched her drive away in her expensive car, back to her mansion and her world of wealth and privilege, a world that had somehow opened up to include him. Inside, Mrs. Chen was smiling knowingly. "She's a good woman, that one. Good for you." "You think so?" "I know so. I've lived 82 years, Jack Miller. I know when two people are meant to be together. You and that lady, you're meant to be." After Mrs. Chen left and Jack checked on Evan, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his father's life was transforming, Jack stood at his kitchen window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there was Olivia, probably pulling into her driveway, probably thinking about him the way he was thinking about her. 6 weeks since the fire. 6 weeks since everything changed. And Jack realized he wasn't scared anymore. Wasn't worried about moving too fast or bridging impossible gaps or any of the logical concerns that had kept him up at night. He was just happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way he'd thought he'd never be again. His phone buzzed. "Olivia, thank you for tonight, for being my date, for showing me your world, for being you. I'm falling for you, Jack Miller. Just thought you should know." Jack's heart pounded as he typed his response. "I'm falling for you too. Have been since you hugged me in your office and cried. Maybe before. You scare me and challenge me and make me want to be better. I think I might love you, Olivia Grant. Just thought you should know." The response came almost immediately. "I think I might love you too. Let's figure out what that means together." Jack set down his phone and smiled at the city lights, at the future spreading out before him like a map to somewhere beautiful. He thought about Lily and Evan, about the family they were all building together, about Olivia's strength and vulnerability, about second chances and the courage it took to grab them with both hands. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed, fire trucks heading toward some emergency, some crisis that required heroes. Jack sent up a silent prayer for whoever was fighting that fire, for the people they'd save, for the lives that would be changed. He'd been that hero once, had run into the flames when it mattered most. And in saving a little girl with singed pigtails, he'd somehow saved himself too, found a way back to living instead of just surviving, found love in the most unexpected place with the most unexpected person.